The regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the San Ynez River Valley Groundwater Basin Eastern Management Area Groundwater Sustainability Agency and the public hearing for the proposed Eastern Management Area Groundwater Extraction Fee at time 4:02 on June 26, 2025. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, so alternate director Hayden,
Here.
director Aronia,
Here.
alternate director Dietenhofer,
Here, and Supervisor Hartman's on her way from Santa Maria.
great. Director Merriby, here, Chair Joes,
Here. Okay, at this time, we're on item number 2, public comment. Any member of the public may address the board relating to any non-agenda matter within the board's jurisdiction. The time for public comment allotted for each individual shall not exceed 3 minutes. No action will be taken by the board at this meeting on any public comment. Now, this is non-agenda items. I know why you're most here for agenda items, but anyone for non-agenda items like to speak to the board? Okay, hearing none, close that. We'll move on to item number 3. Public hearing for proposed EMA GSA groundwater fee. I'm going to open the public hearing for this. We are now going to consider adoption of the groundwater extraction fee. And I want to start by explaining the process we will follow. The law requires us to conduct a public hearing regarding this matter. After the introductory comments, I will declare the public meeting open and will ask our executive director, Dan Hamill, to provide background and introduce procedural requirements of the Eastern Management Area GSA has taken so far. We will then hear from our fee consultant, that's Water Resources and Economics, who will have a presentation on the fee proposed. Then we will hear from our legal counsel on legal objection letters that have come in. We will then take questions and comments from the board. After the board has completed their question and comments, we will take comments from the public to ensure that everyone has a chance to speak. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. Written protests can be submitted until the end of the public hearing. If you have written protests, please submit them to the executive director upon conclusion of public comment, or you can hand them in currently. We will close the public hearing and count all written protests received. So now the public hearing is now officially open. Dan, would you like that?
yeah, so I think we have, sorry, just interrupt, we've got a report that there's some folks outside that can't hear, the proceedings. We have an alternate viewing location that's set up because, we were frankly concerned we might have more people than this room can accommodate. The city of Solvang City Hall is available for people to go to, listen in on the meeting and be able to contribute through public comment virtually. And so we can make that available to you. I would also ask that staff or consultants that are in the room, maybe they can leave and make room for the public. I mean, that's, I think, what we can offer.
So how many folks are outside?
1,
10, 20, 30?
it's so that they
Can I ask you a question? If you sent out 6,220 letters, what your mailing says, why do you have it in a room that's this size? Why didn't you have it down in Solvang at the events hall so people could attend? It's just a question.
It's a good question. We've never had response to this many people at a meeting, so, but good question. Appreciate it. It's just, if you want to.
Well, just a point of order, we need to confirm that we're
compliance with there, so we do need a head count.
Okay.
Okay, well, we've got just a person limit, you know, because of the fire code. So,
55.
yeah, that's it. So that people can go to the solving skill participate.
But Chair Joe's, I've got, I see 3 people outside, and I think there's 5 or 6 seats in here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I count 42.
Okay, so some folks can come in.
Bring it in.
Come on in. 13.
One.
Yeah, you can all push one. Space. And if anyone needs to see what the stand on.
Okay. Okay. Then, ready to proceed? Want to go over here?
Yes, thank you, Chair Jones. This hearing is being conducted pursuant to a process established in the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, or more commonly known as SGMA. SGMA empowers the Eastern Management Area Groundwater Sustainability Agency, or EMA GSA, as will be referred to throughout this meeting, to impose fees on the extraction of groundwater from the basin to fund cost of groundwater management, including but not limited to the cost of administration, operation, maintenance, maintaining a prudent reserve, and other actions as necessary to implement the EMA GSA's groundwater sustainability plan. This plan was adopted by the EMA GSA on January 6, 2022, and has been approved by the California Department of Water Resources. SGMA requires the procedure for adopting fees to be done pursuant to certain provisions of the California Constitution, specifically Article 13D, Section 6, which requires the EMA GSA identify all the parcels on which the fee may be imposed and provide a written notice by mail to the record owner of each identified parcel. You may recognize this notice. The amount of the fee, the basis on which the amount of the proposed charge was calculated, the reason for the fee or charge, and then the time, date and time and location of a public hearing on the proposed fee. The public hearing must take place no less than 45 days after mailing of the proposed fee. And the EMA GSA submitted written notices to 6,222 parcel owners on April 23rd, 2025, and has complied with all the provisions and with all the applicable statutory requirements. At the public hearing, where we are today, the EMA GSA must consider all protests against the proposed fee. Written protests will be accepted until the conclusion of the public hearing. So if you have a written protest, please submit it to Charlotte before we conclude this hearing. If written protests against the proposed fee are presented by a majority of owners of the identified parcels, the EMA GSA cannot impose the fee. At the conclusion of the hearing, we will tally the number of written protests received. We are also going to have a presentation by Water Resource Economics. They were retained as a consulting firm that specializes in fees and rate structures to assist the EMA GSA in developing the proposed extraction fee. WRE, or Water Resources Economics, is a highly regarded consultant in their field and will now provide a presentation on the proposed fee. I introduce Sanjay.
Thank you, President, board member, staff, and public. It's my pleasure to be here, talk about this important study associated with the rate study associated with this important fee.
Is it possible to move that over there?
Yeah.
So we press everybody?
That's a great suggestion. Thank you. All right, so I'm gonna start over again. President, board members, staff, and public, it's my pleasure to be here to talk about this important fee associated with the groundwater assessment. We'll go to the next slide. So today's agenda is to go over what was the goal of the study. I'm also going to talk about the process that we've been through, the study meetings that we've had. How did we determine the fee, what are we call units of service, what are the measurements that we use? Talk about the policy discussions about setting up this new government entity, the loans that were required to fund it, and the reserves that we believe are important, and then talk about the financial plan and the proposed rates. So this fee is to cover the cost associated with running this groundwater management. The groundwater management is a new entity. There are operating costs to monitor the wells associated and to make sure it's a healthy system and to make sure the water is available for the future.
That's somebody's phone.
So maybe go back one slide. I was waiting for the music there. So the steps that are determined is that we looked at the operating cost of running this government entity. We projected out costs over the next 7 years. We asked ourselves, what are the readily available data to use to determine the fee? How do we determine that? What are the different mechanisms that we have? We developed a 5-year fee schedule that you also all of you saw in your Prop 218 notice. We've held several meetings, which I'll be talking about in a second. And then today's goal and objective is to get your comments, inputs, and potentially, if based on the board's consideration, adopt these fees. We started the study in December 19th, where we had the kickoff meeting associated with this fee. We've been looking at it since then. In February 27th, we did look at different fee assessment options. We asked ourselves, what are the different ways to assess this fee? What makes sense? On March 20th, we had a financial plan and rate scenario associated with it. We did look at several different scenarios about how do we fund this enterprise. What are the different ways of doing that? April 17th, we developed the final rate scenario. We submitted a report for the board to consider to receive. That report, hopefully, you've had the time to look at it, and it outlines the financial mechanisms of how we cover it. And then today is the public hearing associated with the fee adoption. So the first thing that we did is we asked ourselves, what is the right way, or what is the way to assess this fee? How should we do that? As we all know, we're looking at groundwater pumping. We don't have meters, as we all know. So what we did is that we looked at the 5-year extraction data based on calculated information that was readily available. That's in unpublished information. Staff, based on recommendation from staff and stakeholders in the community, we said that we were going to use each year's assessments that actually occurred. So it's not the 5-year average, it's actually what occurred. And we would anticipate discrepancy between the 5-year average and what actually occurred that year. So some agencies, the municipal, are measured. So the municipal, like Solvang, the city of Solvang has measured. We know how much they use. That's easy. And then other entities, the mutuals, the rural domestic, and ag are estimated. We have GIS measurements associated with the irrigation area. We have crop coefficients. We estimated that information. What we're showing you here is the different, how that swings, how that moves. And it mainly moves because of the weather conditions. When it rains more, people don't need to use as much groundwater. When it's drier, people use more. We use that 14,940 to determine the fee. But the actual fee will be based on what actually occurred that year based on the estimate. The estimate, as you can see in 2024, is much lower, 12,808. So one of the things about when starting this new, so first this GSA as mentioned is a state mandate. The legislator has determined that we need to manage our groundwater basins. So this is a complaint associated with that. Based on that information, each of these GSAs have been formed throughout California to make sure that the water is readily available in the future and that people don't overpump the groundwater. The challenge is that since it's a new entity, it doesn't have, it has cost upfront, it doesn't have revenue upfront. So I had to borrow money from different participants, from the different municipalities. So it's borrowed $400,000 in order to start off this enterprise, this business of making sure we manage it. And I use the word business because there isn't, it's not necessarily business because there isn't a profit, there isn't a stakeholder, it's a government entity, but it is in some sense, we're trying to make sure we have the revenues in place to cover the operating costs. The payback, which was a discussion that we had quite a bit with the board, will occur from 2027 to 2030 with a 3% interest. That payback was extended out as much as we can to lower the fee. We did look at different scenarios of paying that back sooner, but that would cause the fee much more higher. And we were trying to minimize that fee as much as we can. There's also a contingency that we developed. One of the things that we're concerned about is revenue stability, because the fee is based on how much people are estimated to use. If the weather condition is wet here, people use less water, and then there'll be less revenue for the agency to operate its costs, to meet its costs. So we're recommending 20% contingency to deal with that uncertainty. This is only, our recommendation would be, this would be in the beginning, the first 4 or 5 years. Once the entity is sort of self-sufficient and has that foot, you may not need that contingency. In addition, we are recommending a reserve to help fund the cash flow. This fee will be on the property roll. As you may know, the property roll you pay twice a year. So the entity will receive, the EMA will receive the revenue twice a year. But the expenses that this new entity will incur will be on a monthly basis. So we'll need to have some reserves because the money will come in lump sums and then it will draw down. So we're recommending a 50% reserve. Once we meet that reserve target, of course, we don't need more money. We just need to get to that point, sort of like a contingency or a escrow account. So this now shows us the financial scenarios that we've developed for this one. The most important line over here is this one where it shows the fee, $39.50 an acre fee. It goes up to $48.10 an acre fee. This is, as I mentioned, the 5-year average. This shows the revenues that we collect. This line over here is the ending balances. In the beginning, they're slightly positive, 53,000. And then we get to a place where in 2030, we meet our reserve target. At that time, we can, as the entity goes through, these fees right here, these first 3 fees specifically, the board is considering the adoption of those fees. In those out years, the board can consider implementing a lower fee potentially, depending on what the financial condition is. So if things are good, if the board manages the system, staff manages the system, make sure costs are lower, then we can actually have lower fees out in the out years. Also, in the out years, we're paying back the loan associated with that $400,000 that I mentioned. So in those out years, once that loan is paid off, which is a significant part of operating costs, then the fee wouldn't have to be as high. But in the beginning, that's the sort of the nature of these fees that we're dealing with. And I think that is my presentation. I'm gonna see if we want to answer questions from the board right now about this.
Because the next is our attorney to go over the objection letter.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe if the board has questions, we can do that, and then Sanjay can sit down and we can go over the legal, and then we can go to.
Okay, board, do you have any questions? Hearing none. We've been through this several times.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of just procedural things that the chair alluded to. I just want to remind everybody of. The signal law requires that this whole process be done pursuant to certain provisions of the California Constitution. And basically those requirements are that we send out this broad notice, which we did. And then it's called a majority protest process. So if you have any written protests you'd like to file, this is the time to do it. If you haven't done it already, perhaps some of you have mailed some already. If we have all of them here, and at the conclusion of this hearing, we're going to count them up. So we have to make sure that we have everybody's written protest. So if you have one, you can still submit one. So we received some, I'm not sure how many at this point, but they are going to be, we'll have to take a break, I think, to tally up what we have. And just also want to, we received about 20 legal objections where people wrote letters making legal protests and raising legal objections. We responded to all of those and sent those letters out before this hearing. So that's where we are procedurally. So I believe at this point, at some point, the chair is going to open it to public comment. That's your time to give public comments. Then we'll conclude and then also carry up the legal protest or the written protest.
So your words are good, but you said a legal objection was responded to. Does that count as a protest in this case?
We are counting them as a protest. And just for anybody who is contemplating doing one, we'll take it in any form. There's no required form you can use. You can put it on a napkin, we'll carry it as a protest, okay?
Okay, we have on here board comments and questions on the whole process as a whole. Anyone want to make any statements, comments, or anything? Okay, I do. I like that. Okay, I've been through this process from the beginning. Okay, I'm on the ID1 board. We have members here from different boards, and the state required us to do this. This is an unfunded mandate from the state of California. Okay, I want you all to hear that. We didn't dredge this up. It came down from the governor, and this is what we've been directed, okay? And if we can't manage locally our groundwater, the state will come in and they will manage it for us. That's the way the act is written. So we, and I'll speak for the board, felt that we got to step up and manage our groundwater ourselves. This is the way we get the input from everybody. We're working together on here to make a sustainable groundwater. We all know what's happening in Kern County, Tulare County. They have drawn their water so low, wells are going dry, land is subsiding. I have friends that live along the Bryant-Kern Canal. That's one of the major canals in the valley. That canal has dropped 20 feet. They have to rebuild the whole canal structure. So this is a real issue. This isn't something that's fly out of the sky, someone wants more money. No, a real issue, and we need to protect our groundwater. That's the board. And also, Sigma gave us the responsibility. We are the responsible agency to manage the groundwater. No one else has been given this. It's our responsibility. If we can't do it sustainably, the state will come in and take over. Okay, I just want to make that clear.
Can I add to what you just said? I mean, we submitted a ground sustainability plan that was approved by the state. So they're taking our leadership and running with it basically. So other basins that have submitted their plans did not get them approved. I think New was one of them that had some issues with their plans. So we did a really good job during the development phase to get us to this point. I know a lot of you are here because you're concerned about the cost, and I think we can get into that for the agenda. But you know, we're trying to do the right thing for everybody.
Joe?
Dan, could you also talk about the grant? Because that really offsets a lot of our costs as well. And I think people should know that not only was our plan approved, but we got awarded a significant grant to do work in our watershed.
Yeah, so one of the funding sources that member agencies, the EMA, GSA, were successful in obtaining is over a $5 million grant from the Department of Water Resources for the entire San Ynez River Valley groundwater basin. Approximately $1.2 million of that grant is made available specifically for the EMA and is funding projects to help us better understand how much groundwater is being pumped, to implement this groundwater extraction fee, to prepare annual reports and other required deliverables to the Department of Water Resources, to improve our groundwater monitoring network through installation of new monitoring wells and other measuring devices. And all of those funds are offsetting the cost to the local groundwater pumpers for completing those projects that were identified in the groundwater sustainability plan and would have to be paid for by the this organization. So it's this basin is very fortuitous in receiving that grant, and that is helping keep the costs down.
And just to add to that, a little more history too, when we just first did this up back in 2017, all the member agencies contributed to the GSA, and the county contributed $1 million, if I recall correctly. So we've been working at this a long time.
Also, I'd like to make clear here, these charges are only applicable to wells that are pumping water. It's an extraction fee. So if you don't have a well on your property, it's not applicable. But it gives you fair warning that if in the future you're gonna put a well in on your property, there will be groundwater fees for extraction. So that's why everybody got a notice, all the property owners, okay? For that one reason. And so if you, like I say, if you don't have a well, you're not gonna have a fee. Also, okay, let's just say for general purposes, it doesn't pass. You guys vote it down, okay? That doesn't mean this goes away. The state will come in, because they say the plan will be, they're gonna come in. And so I called the state, and I go, okay, you guys come in, how is this gonna work? They go, well, we'll have some public meetings and we'll assess the situation. You do have an approved plan, we like your plans, we're just gonna implement it. And I go, okay, well, our fee got shot down. And they'll go, well, we'll come in, we're gonna use your fee, we're gonna charge your fee, plus we're gonna come in and we're gonna charge our fee on top of that, plus charge another $20 per acre foot. So I'm going, well, wait a minute, that's over double than what we're doing. They go, yeah, but we're directed by the government, the state, the water agency up there, they're saying, we can't pay for it, so you're gonna have to pay for it. It's your groundwater basin, you have to pay for it. So that's why I'm really trying to explain to you guys, and we will hear from you, and I don't blame you. I don't like more government. I really don't. Talk to my wife. She will tell you I complain all the time. But hey, I decided to step up to the plate and do this and be involved. And that's why I like seeing you people here. You're involved in our community. I want you to be involved in our groundwater. Because without groundwater, it's not anymore here. You know, that's why you live here. You love the area. So, and just, you know, one person asked me, well, you're just talking groundwater. I said, yeah, ID1, we import water for our customers. We bring it from Mount Shasta, comes all the way down to the pipe system. ID1 customers, you buy into this. Solvent customers, you're getting it too. You buy into the system to bring water. So we're bringing water from the north. We got water up at the lake we're using. We exchange water to use, and then we also have our river water wells. We got those, and we got the groundwater. So we're really diversified here because we know the issue. We do not want to impact our groundwater. Our groundwater is like our bank account. That's what we got. That's what we control here locally. The others, they can cut the pipe, you know, from Shasta. Things can happen. And it happened, you know, last month. There was a leak in the pipeline somewhere up in the Central Valley, and we had to shut down our state water. We went back onto our groundwater. So that's why it's so dang important. We want to maintain it sustainably. And that's why we're here today. We've come up with a budget that we feel is appropriate. It was $1 million, and our executive director had to hear the wrath of the board. It's been cut to $500,000. And that's still a lot of money. That's more money than I got. But hey, we got to manage this, and it's going to be up to you guys how you vote on it, and we'll go from there. Sorry you had to hear me, guys, but that's why I'm doing it. Okay. Let's now we'll open it up for public comment. I'd like you, one second, let me say, I'm gonna open it for public comment. We're gonna have the podium, okay? You come, and you're gonna, I really want you to state your name. If you live and have a well in the eastern management area, and, you can give your address you want, I don't care. But I just like to know if you're in the eastern management area, who you are, and, because it'll be on record. And we're gonna hold it for 3 minutes, people. We got a lot of people. I know you're all gonna talk. And so we want to hear from you. And if there's something that the board feels they can reply back quickly, or our manager or our attorney, we'll have them reply to a specific question. Okay? And just raise your hands and we'll proceed from there. Dan, does that sound good? Steve? Okay, ma'am, come on, step on up.
I have a question, not a comment. How is this gonna be fair? Because if we have no meters and we're being assessed this fee, and I'm next door to a vineyard, are they being assessed? How is it gonna be fair?
Okay, Dan, you wanna do that?
Yeah, so currently in the EMA, there isn't a requirement for meters, but that actually, there is an agenda item later today for the board to consider a well metering ordinance. So it is something that could come in the future, if the board decides that they want to move forward with that. What we need to do in the meantime is use the best available information that we have on groundwater extraction for the purposes of establishing the fee, and then, that allows the GSA to start funding itself, so we can manage groundwater, can implement a well registration program. And as we move forward in time, we will be improving our methods of estimating how much groundwater or measuring how much groundwater is being extracted. We've also incorporated, it's also a future agenda item, there's an appeal process. So if you feel like the charge that you're being applied to your parcel is incorrect, it's not calculated correctly based on the information you have, you can appeal, and the board and staff and the board will consider your appeal and make a determination. Then also, just I would add that the fee is being applied, it's a volumetric charge. So the more you pump, the more you're gonna pay. So there's direct.
But how do you know what we're pumping? You don't know.
Right now, we're using the best available estimates we have. There's reference that.
Our neighbors is gonna pump a lot more than I do. So how are you going to assess them for that? I live next door to a vineyard.
So.
They use a lot more water than me.
So for agriculture, we have delineated crop mapping data. They've defined the fields. We can use satellite evapotranspiration technology that measures how much energy, which correlates to water, those crops are releasing. And then we can use that. That allows us to calculate how much water is being applied to those fields.
Without a meter.
And and we encourage you meters. That's our end goal. Everybody have meters. You know, the minimus, the small property owners, you know, that just have for domestic use. We have an average for them. That would be, I think it was 1.7 or 1.07 acre feet per year, which is we're at $40 an acre foot, be about $40 for the year. Okay. For the small property. Joan?
Just a point of order. I wonder if we could set expectations that, maybe if there's questions of clarification, that we answer them right away, that we, take comments and respond to them at the end. Otherwise, we'll have a lot of back and forth.
Okay. Okay, Dan, I mean, if we do that, you have to have a list of questions. You're gonna do it. Okay. Yes, sir. Name and.
I'm gonna do that. My name's Kelly Rose, and I live in Los Olivos, and I have a well, and I also am on the board of our neutral water company. So I have a little bit of understanding. First of all, I want to thank you for creating this agency as opposed to, I'm not happy with the agency, but I'm much happier that it's local than with the state. And sustainable water is critical to all of us. That's why we're here. And we're trying to support the effort that you've gone through thus far and hopefully influence it in the future. Unfortunately, this process is extremely difficult and the agency has decided to use a path that effectively rigs the voting. It basically, right now, all of us in here, doesn't matter how we vote because the answer is already predetermined. How do I get to that? Well, it's fairly easy. As you heard, 6,200 plus or minus ballots or things came out, and this represents the universe of voting people. The interesting thing, Prop 218, which is, they talk about it being embedded in the Constitution, through the Prop 218 says basically a non-vote, somebody who doesn't vote, that's the same as a yes vote. So if we have 6,200 letters that went out, 4,700 of that impacts or came from City of Solvang Water and ID1. That leaves basically 1,500 of us that aren't ID1 or Solvang. If all 1,500 of us voted no, it doesn't matter. We can't get to 50%. So it's a done deal. You know, it's nice that you're having us here, but I do want to talk a little bit about the fact that, as you said, if you don't have a well, this doesn't impact you. Well, very few people in ID1 or in the city of Solvang have a well. They got this thing and they said, hey, it doesn't apply to us. So they didn't vote. They didn't come in here. They didn't disagree with anything. So that we just disappeared in the fog. You know, it's just kind of sad that, you know, we aren't the enemy. We're trying, as you know, you talk about farmers. A lot of the vineyards stopped overhead watering and put in expensive drip lines, okay? We are trying to help you because we know the importance of sustainability. But basically taking this approach and really cramming it down our throats, because like I said, I'm here wasting my time because it doesn't matter what I say, it doesn't matter what anybody in this room says. We can't get 50% plus one to object to this process. So it's a little bit sad. What really concerns me too is the farmers.
You've got 30 seconds.
Okay, it's the farmers in this valley who grow crops, vegetables, fruit for us. And this is, they didn't do it to get rich, you know, and they're barely struggling now. So anyway, that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it. Yes, sir. You raise your hand.
Hello there.
Hello.
I'm Brian Epstein. I'm president of Refinement Water Collecting a state small water system. Your new CAG member, I understand.
All right. Welcome.
Just a couple comments. I agree with the previous gentleman that it's a bit of an uphill battle. You know, with a small water system, we're looking at a lot of cost increase. And one thing Charlotte answered for me a week or so ago is that people should know that the cost here is over and above that we're already paying for extraction from the San Ynez River Water Conservation District, which is a minimum. Nevertheless, on top of that. Furthermore, I will note that just yesterday, I got a notice from the Environmental Health Department in the county that took our permit fee from $529 per year to $1,060. That hurts our tiny, we serve 8 residences, really small water system. And, you know, I keep seeing that, of course, PG&E is killing us as well. So we're just seeing this ramp up of costs. It's very difficult for us to muster the funding. I've increased the rates for our local outfit 2 or 3 times in the last, I'm going to say 5 or 8 years. Just another $200 a quarter here recently, and I'm not sure it's going to keep up. So we worry about that. That said, I do appreciate what the organization is doing here as having tracked our water level over the last, I'm going to say 10 or 12 years. We went from about 100 and, I'm gonna say, about 85 feet of water level above our pump. Last time I checked, which was a couple years ago, so our sounding line broke, we're down to about 45. So we have lost about 40 feet of aquifer level at our location near our winery in the last 10 years or so. So this is an important thing we're doing here. I support it. The costs are troublesome, but I do understand where you're going, and I appreciate the board and all the openness that I've been involved with over, remotely. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the comment. Appreciate the, understanding what we've been going through. Okay, next person would like to speak. Yes, sir.
I'm James Beard, and I am on the board of, Scotland Park Water. We supply 94 homes. 4 years ago, we were paying, $350 a quarter. Now it's over $600 a quarter. We've had to raise rates. Our extraction fees last year were $2,900. Calculations, they're gonna go to over 5,000. And by the time the end of the 5-year raise or the raise, they're gonna be over $20,000 by year 35. That's a lot to take for a small water community. And, I don't know if you've heard, we just drilled a new well.
Yeah.
That was 1,000 foot deep. That we got into the Cariaga. So and most people are also facing chromium 6 that's coming. That's why we invested and drilled, got into the Cariaga, and now we don't have any chromium 6. At least we diverted that, but then we get hit from this side. So I understand the need for conservation, but I think the fees and the regulations are excess.
Appreciate that, sir. And I appreciate your statement on chromium 6. We're looking at that too.
Yeah.
And that's gonna be humongous. That's another hurdle.
Yeah, it was gonna cost, I looked into chromium 6 for us to purchase a system just for our neighborhood. It's $2.2 million.
Yeah.
The lease assistant, it was $250,000 a year. Our annual budget is currently at 190.
I totally understand that. It's not coming down and the restrictions are coming more. So,
Yeah.
okay, well, thank you. Yes, sir.
I'm Nick Battistini, state of Sid. We're already paying an extraction fee at the pump.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna be paying it per parcel. That's double taxation. Plain and simple. You talk about fee, everybody's saying fees. It's paid through our property tax. It's a tax, right? It's not a fee, it's a tax. And another thing, I don't know if any of you have done it. Has anybody studying the reservation water over there? Their groundwater? Are they exempt from this? Which they probably are. That's all our water.
Yep.
Every bit of it. So they're gonna be completely out of this. No one's gonna be monitoring their wells. They're using a ton of water over there. I used to be in construction. All that stuff going on there takes a lot of water. A lot of concrete, a lot of roads. It all takes water. In fact, every one of those houses gonna be built, that's water, our water. Thank you.
No, thank you. Do you want to address that now or later?
I think to get it, make sure we get everybody, I'm taking notes, how to
Okay.
address, I already got everybody's name and your comments, so I'll be able to address that.
Because those are good comments. I won't let those slide. Okay. Next, yes, sir.
My name's Richard Gray. I live in Ballard Canyon. I have 3 questions and I think they're quick, so they'll be within 3 minutes. The first is, we're not currently metered and I frankly have no idea how much water we use. And I know you said you're going to start with estimates. And I wonder whether you could simply tell me based on what you've kind of heard so far. I realize it varies by crop and other variables, but let's say 1 acre of 1 acre of olives or grapes, approximately, and if you could give me a range, how much does that use in a year? in terms of acre feet. So that's one question. Another question goes to, two other questions go to the exemptions. Gentleman who's just up here, asked about the reservation, and I think I read the description. It said that the reservation is exempt from the fee. So my question is, are they exempt because they're simply legally exempt and they cannot be taxed? Or are there other reasons that they're exempt? And then the third question is, users of the groundwater are not simply folks that have, but presumably some of the municipal water, I don't know where it all comes from, but I assume some of it comes from groundwater as well. Is there some sort of similar fee that the municipalities pay? Or is it totally being assessed against the owners of individual wells?
Thank you, sir. I can tell you one answer real quick. ID1, we pay the same fees that you guys pay. We have to pay the conservation district their fee, and we'll have to pay Sigma. So yes, that applies.
Same for solid.
Same for solvent.
So that'll be passed on to the farm, to each resident in their fee.
That's right. And you use it, we pay, we all pay. Nothing's free. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, evening. My name is Stan Roberts. I'm a hillbilly from mostly us. Live up in West Oak Trail. Question or comment, how does, the state of California, the range of extraction fees is from 0, which isn't acceptable and is approved in some GSAs, all the way up to say 315. So it varies for a lot of different factors that a lot of the experts can tell you. But specifically right here within EMA, that's what we're talking about. There's, I think, an estimate of 310 acre feet, which is the small domestic users, which would probably be de minimis in many cases. Consider that being 0, because that's even over that year, it's only about $12,000 your total budget. And the $40 times 300. So think about it. The impact on the smallest user is pretty large from we're already paying, that's the only water we have is extracting it out of the ground. We don't have any other sources. We have rain, but we know how that goes. So consider that as a board. And then also it seems it looks a little bit like the fee report looks like a lot of the other ones in the state, a little bit of pro forma going on. There's 4365 applied in different places for, and that's not too surprising. But even compared to how, say, CMA and WMA, which is within our county right here, and even San Antonio based, we've got a lot of different GSAs. Maybe, don't know if that's the future. The last question is, what's the 10 and 20-year plan? 4.5 years, that'll cut it. So spend some money on planning in the future. Thanks.
Thanks, sir. I'll let them get caught up on the question. Ready?
Good evening. My name is Michael St. Dennis. I live in Miller. I have 2 comments to make. First, I respectfully disagree with the provision that says that notice has been fully complied with. I don't agree with that. I did not receive the notice at my house at all, and I checked with my neighbors at Meadowlark, and they didn't receive it either, and we happened to be a third party. Secondly, on that same point, my wife called me today. I work in Lompoc. I'm a legal aid lawyer for the Valley. So my wife called me today to tell me that there's a registered letter at home. It's a response to my written complaint. And it came today. I have no idea what the hell it says. So that kind of makes my argument that I think we're playing fast and loose is what this gentleman is alluding to from the standpoint of the notice provisions. The system's being gamed a little bit. I'm not accusing people of being bad people. I'm just saying the system's being gamed. If we're sending 6,000 notices out and the people who are at ground zero aren't getting them. It's gonna be, I mean, as this other gentleman said, we're kind of dead in the water, wasting our time talking about this. My second point on this, it's still unclear to me what this enterprise is supposed to do. I now have a better understanding of how the fee was developed, and that's great, wonderful. We have a really solid measured way of developing a fee. But what is the measure of sustainability? What are we talking about? What, it's like, it's almost like saying, okay, we're gonna do good. What's that? I mean, can somebody tell me how we're gonna measure sustainability, or what are we gonna do? I mean, we're not talking about seeding clouds. We're not talking about desalination plants. So what are we talking about in terms of what the human beings, the bodies are gonna do when they come to work to help us with sustainability? What is that? And I look through all of the stuff and I can't find anything. I don't see any information that tells me, oh, Mike, this is what we're gonna do, take care of the sustainability so your kids will have water. There's nothing there. So anyhow, and the last thing, but the point about being worried about the state coming in, I'm not worried about the state coming in, simply because you can only fight one battle at a time. If you stand here, you fight this battle, you try the best you can, and if the state turns in and comes in here, we'll fight that battle when those cats show up.
Okay, thank you, sir. Next.
Afternoon. My name is Michelle Deward and I live in Los Olivos. We have a small vineyard, and so we consider ourselves farmers, and we have drip irrigation, and we lose money every year on our vineyard, but we love the way it looks, and we have to make a decision. Do we want a house there, or do we want to keep our vineyard? This is the problem that a lot of farmers, small farmers, are going to be facing with this extra fee, including all the extra fees and requirements and permits for running to being in agriculture. The first question I have is, I came to this meeting thinking that gathering 50% plus one protest letters were our only option. But after I went last night to a Buellton meeting, and they were having a Prop 218 protest meeting as well. And I learned that the board has options for crafting solutions to this problem. And legally, you do not have to follow the specific plan that's outlined in this rate study. You can, from all the comments here, you can organically come up with another plan. You do not have to follow this rate study plan. And I'd love this to be confirmed with the lawyer, because we all showed up here. We all knew that this was going to be a losing option. Secondly, I just wanted to know, I just would have appreciated if the board and staff had held 2 hearings to answer questions to the community about this fee. Also a tax. This fee is essentially generating over $1.5 million to establish a new bureaucracy. That's a lot over the next 3 years. Today is the only hearing that you have provided to the general public, to our community. And coincidentally, it's on the same day as the protest deadline. That's not okay. And for the benefit of the San Ynez residents, it would have been appreciated if the board president had made an effort to write a letter and submit a letter to the newspapers to help the community learn more about what the GSA is. I witnessed at the last meeting, Supervisor Hartman had generously and politely asked for him to submit a letter. I looked for that letter. I wanted to learn more. I didn't see the letter. I just will hope that you'll consider these fees. Maybe we can come up with another strategy that will, because really these fees impact the farmers, and we want to discourage agriculture in this valley. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name is Bill Kroll. I live in Olivos. Lived there for 28 years. Have been in the water company for the same amount of time. And we manage quite well. It's not a big water company, it's a little water. But I'd like to just say, I
I really have first a question. The way this was sent out to 6,200 some odd people to start with, and then that provision that Mr. Rhodes mentioned, that if you didn't get a response, it was not a no, it was a yes. Was that established by this group, or was that established by the state? Who had no one, had to follow that. I was glad to hear that, if I heard correctly, that you have submitted a plan, a water plan, which I assume you have to do every year, and that was accepted. So you're really our representatives, and you're local. So that's great. But what would happen if in fact you had sent out a letter, or like you did, but in there you included a ballot and a return envelope, and it came back no. In other words, this defeated. What would the state do? Would they force themselves in here anyway? Do they accept a no? Is no just for show? Like an answer to that. I don't know if you can give it now, but
We'll do it at the end. You got his question?
Real quickly,
Okay.
the statute that forms Sigma, that imposes obligation on your community, stated that the agency has the authority to levy a fee. If you're gonna do the fee, it has to be pursuant to California Constitution, Article 13D, Section 6. And then you look at that section of the Constitution, it's this majority protest process. They did not make that determination, the state legislature did, back in 2014 when this legislation was passed.
okay.
And so there's not a lot of room here for, when you're talking about this balance situation you've seen in other areas, you have to understand that that's a different section of Prop 218. That's for what are called assessments. They're in a different lane than fees, which are in a different lane than special taxes, and they're all treated differently. But the essence here is that Sigma tells this district or this agency how to do the vote, and it's a majority protest.
Well, wouldn't you say that sounds like what Mr. Rhodes says is a rigged thing to start with? We didn't have a chance. In fact, when we discussed this at our mutual water company meeting, we first got the notice, the point was raised, we don't have a chance. And
Thanks, sir. Yes,
Sir, just a quick follow-up question
No.
on that.
please come up, introduce yourself and.
Hi, my name's Henry Gren. We live over on Ridge Road. Just a follow-up question on that. Does the state legislature specifically state how you guys are going to conduct the protest?
Yes,
It's got specific rules and that this is exactly how it's going to be done.
it's very clear. And it's section 107.30.2 of the water code. And it's part that, which is part of Sigma. And it says that fees imposed pursuant to this section shall be adopted in accordance with subdivisions A and B of section 6 of Article 13D of the California Constitution. When you then turn to the California Constitution and look at those sections, it describes the notice proceeding with the 45 days, the contents of the notice, and if we receive written protests by a majority of the people who receive notice, we can't proceed.
Thanks, sir. Next question. Yes, sir.
My name is Mike Hadley. I'm the president of Meadowlark Ranches Water Association. I have just a couple of questions. Number one, nobody in Meadowlark got a letter. Ranch Association Water Company did not get a letter. We currently pay San Ynez River Water District approximately $3,000 to $4,000 every 6 months for ground extraction fees. Are you telling me now that what I paid San Ynez River Water District and now you're gonna add on the other? That's my question.
Okay, you're talking about the conservation district charges for your well.
Correct, which we've been paying for 15 years.
Just want to make certain that's the charge you're talking. Okay, thank you. Well, somebody else wanted to.
My name is Bernadette Huntington. I live in Ballard Canyon area. And I was just curious, if there's a protest being submitted, does it even really count because of the state mandate? Right? I mean, why would we even submit it if it's not going to count? And then my second question is, my final question is, who has the recall petition? The recall petition for our governor? Because I'll sign it.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Lynn Lafayette, and I live in Salt Bay, Newport Canyon. And I guess this has kind of already been asked, but I feel a little stupid because I feel that we're all hearing of so many different issues as far as, we have ag, we have people in the city and drawing from different sources. I personally am managing our small well system for 5 parcels. And we happen to be lucky and be metered, so we can monitor our water clearly. So I submit every 6 months, I send you guys a little check. One part of the year, it's a little less because of the time of year. Then our cubic feet go up at a certain time of the year. So those are expected fees. So I guess I get confused by this whole process in that I think Mr. Hadley made that comment about we're paying you guys. So.
Okay, first off, you're not paying that.
Well, we're paying.
You're paying for water.
Right, yeah.
But you're paying the conservation, their fee for the services they provide. They don't provide groundwater. Sigma is to provide sustainable groundwater management. That's what this group is to provide.
Yeah.
They have their own mission that they're providing.
And I think that's where it gets muddled, because there are many of us who feel we're already paying for something, and that there's another new thing that's gonna help manage our going forward groundwater for helping us to hopefully have water for a long time. So I think that gets a little unclear. And a question I have is, I did get the notice, but I have many neighbors who are either on a single wells. Many people I learned had no idea of submitting a report to San Ynez River Water Conservation District. And so, that was confusing to me, because how is that captured? So I'm gonna be getting an additional fee for my acknowledged well system. And then I have people that live near me that are drawing off the same water source that I am, that have never, I've been there 30 years on my property. I have some neighbors who've never submitted a fee to you guys. Had no idea what I was talking about when I said I do that. So that is a concern when you're trying to go forward, manage the use of water, because all of the little usages add up to a big usage and are being overlooked, it appears. In fairness.
No, thank you. And, you know, you've got a super valid concern. I mean, super valid, especially those who have wells and they haven't been paying. That'll be for the conservation district. That's their business. That's their job to contact all of them.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but that's a very good point.
Usage. So other people, and somebody mentioned she lives on a small parcel, not
Right.
using much, and my neighbor is a vineyard. So it seems maybe unfair for some drawing a lot from that and being charged possibly a fee that might be a little steep for what their water usage is.
You know, as an ID1 trustee, we pay the conservation district, but there's lands across the way that don't pay and they got wells, you know? So, yeah, it's a valid issue and it needs to be addressed. And I appreciate your comment. Thank you. Sir, would you like to come back up?
I have a question. I just heard you tell them driving in that Brandon River Water District provides something for us. What do they provide for me if they don't want branches?
The conservation district, you're saying?
Yeah,
I don't work for them. I don't know exactly. I'd have to read their,
they don't provide anything for us. We pay the ground, we pay the fee every year because it tells.
all I can say,
According to the California Water Code, they can get it. So
All I
we
can
pay it.
say
What do they?
that's a valid question for them to answer for you. I cannot answer that.
Why should I pay them and then pay you for the same thing?
Valid question.
If I could answer briefly, it's probably not complete, but, I asked that question by email a few weeks back and got a response. Definitive river water conservation that actually protects our water rights and the Cushman water releases, there's recharge our groundwater and a variety of other things I can't remember. But they do serve a purpose that this board does not serve.
Well, I understand that, but water has to be released from Cushman for the farmers down in Lompoc, and that's by law. That has nothing to do with Santa Ynez River Water.
Well, they are protecting our rights.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Yes, sir.
I couldn't stand it. I have to say something.
Okay.
Give me a walk behind, I'll do.
No, that's okay.
My name's Kim Switzer and I live in Rancho Estates. We're a small nature water company, we're 91 lots. And this fee will cost us probably $12,000 to $16,000 the first year. That's just another added fee to the water rate, how we want to cut it. What I'm really curious about is where are we getting any water conservation out of this? It seems to me that we're not conserving water by having this board or this new entity. Water tables are going down. We've used a lot less in the last year because our rates have gone up. You'd be amazed how fast water usage goes down when rates go up. So that's one point. The other point is, I'm not sure that all these entities are going to do much to really conserve the water because we're growing. They want to build more apartments. They want to build more low-cost housing. That takes water. We're issuing these permits. And I know this county is a low growth and a no growth type environment. But I'm not sure how this is going to, I'm not objecting to the rates. I'm just wondering how we're really going to conserve water through this particular entity, or any entity for that matter. I think that the water rates are probably taking care of conservation. And that's really my comment.
That's an excellent comment. And in our plan, we do address how we're going to keep it sustainable. Because we have set thresholds, okay, minimum thresholds for the water level. When it reaches that for 2 consecutive years, downward trend in that, then we have called
Management actions.
management actions that will kick in at that point. And our desire is they'll slow things down and we'll be able to
You're
get
going
it back
to have to restrict the water usage.
that. We're hoping also when we get meters on everything, once everybody has a meter, they'll see what they're using. And then usually, historically, it's been shown that once the meters go on, water usually drops because if they're not needing the water, they use less. So then you see what I mean? And that's a big thing we're supposed to see a response. And then, yes, there could be all sorts of things go into effect, but those are at different stages. But the plan does address that.
I mean, if it isn't for God, we don't get enough water. If we use it down and it doesn't resupply quick enough,
Right.
we don't really have a way of saying, we're gonna have to recharge this thing.
Right, and we're gonna have,
People are gonna have to.
and we're gonna have to take control of that. This is our sustainable area for groundwater. That's our responsibility. So, yeah, it's gonna be a long road to hoe, as they say.
I'd like to think that the farmers are conserving and trying their best.
And they are.
They're just wasting water
No,
because it costs them money
exactly.
to pump it out.
Yep, and that's their profit margin. They know it. Yeah. Exactly.
And this too, we are characterized as a moderate drought basin here. We have a watershed. We have Lake Michigan, we have Jameson, we have Gibraltar. We have water resources in addition to, and surface water in addition to the groundwater. So yes, it does get dire when you get categorized as a severe basin like Nukuyama was. And their plan that they submitted was rejected by the state because they felt that they did not take the plan serious enough to really achieve the long-term sustainability goals that they have as part of the city.
I guess the other thing that I have a comment on, and I'll quit,
Yeah.
is 6,200 letters went out. And for the most part, ID one has, how many, 3,600, 3,700 customers. A lot of those are just metered home. And they aren't, I guess they're getting some out of the groundwater because you guys do some ground wells. But for the most part, those of us that are really getting all of our water out of the groundwater, out of wells, we're the ones that really are sitting in this room. And there's no way that you were ever gonna get 50% plus one to protest the letter, it just wasn't gonna happen. If we eliminate those, mostly of your customers that have really no axe to grind, you'd have a truer image of what's going on. Thank you.
Fine. Well taken. Thanks, sir. You two like to talk?
No.
We got,
Just, no, I'm sorry. Are they talking?
no, they're leaving.
Just, it's really quick, I forgot to ask, is this, fee on, per well, or is it a fee per parcel?
It's a volumetric fee, so it's based upon the amount of water you pump.
From that well. So for a well system,
Yes, if you have a well, the amount.
so for a well system, currently I write, for the parcels that I.
You have one well for 4 parcels, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so then, or 5, so then I send that.
It's whatever
thing
acre
that
foot
not
you use.
per, so we don't, each parcel will not expect to get an individual bill based on that water generated. from
Correct.
that well.
Whoever's property the well is on, that's where the bill will show up.
Okay,
And then it's up to you, I guess, to divide that bill, right?
And it's up to you to manage your water group.
so that's how we.
To divide
Which are total water usage. We don't look at our-
It's about a lot.
All 5. We have it.
Yeah, that was split up in vendors.
Okay, next, anybody outside like to comment? Oh, yes, sir.
My name is Jeff Slade, and we have a well in the EMA. My question pertains to the future water meter. What is the cost of that water meter? Is that gonna be, paid for by the well owner? And then what are the fees to read it? Because if you go to some of these cities, water permit is, or water meter for a 2-inch water meter in Santa Maria could be up to $100,000. So what is the proposed fee for the meter? Is that going to be paid for by the property owner or the well owner? And then what is the cost to read those meters?
Very good. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm David Yield. I live in Ballard Canyon. I'm head of a small water company there. We've been paying the San Ynez River Water Conservation District for multiple years as well. There must be an incredible wealth of information about water usage for all the wells that they cover. I'm extremely surprised that you guys seem to be completely disconnected from them. You don't know what they do.
We're not. I'm a member, I'm the director for that representing. the
Okay,
EMA.
that's what I.
And all that data has been fed into the GSA, so they have had access to all the data that the conservation
So
district.
it means that you're proposing will be superimposed on fees that those of us that are part of that.
It goes to the EMA, which is a different geography than, say, Division 5, which I represent.
So being part of the San Ynez Water Conservation District, are we going to get an additional fee from you?
But there's a fee that's tonight that is, the hearing is on for what GSA is proposing to do. Now, my board met Tuesday night, and then for like zone E users, they recommended an approved to 33% decrease for what you're currently paying. So action was taken, at the Tuesday meeting for that, but that's not this board. We're just members of different boards that are part of this GSA at this point.
Still seems like there's gonna be over.
I'll defer to Reba on that question. That's
Steve.
Speaking of.
Yeah.
So,
My name is Joe Nats. I'm actually David Hill's wife, but I have a question regarding the report that your consultant made. Is that available to read to see how he came up with the numbers and where could I find it? You know, how was it accessed? To read the report, see where he came up with these numbers, how these numbers are, because you know, everybody has Doge, whatever your politics are, you know, we want to shrink government, and here we are expanding government and expanding costs. And that cost trickles down to some of us that are on limited incomes. So I'm just wondering, where do I find this? And if, you know, if that could be sent out, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah. Dan, do you want to let him know?
Yeah, the rate study report is available on the EMA GSA website. And so it
Can you write it, because I'm hard to hear, just put it right on the board and I can take a picture of it or something, because I can't remember those numbers, I'm old.
yeah,
Thank you.
we can do that.
yeah, it's right there.
That is one.
I swear, I'm not trying to hijack the process. So, I think the take,
Wait a minute, or you,
I didn't get your name, I knew you were.
I'm sorry, it's Michael St. Dennis. I live in Meadowlark. So I think the takeaway here, a couple things. So number one, there's a real dearth of information for the people who are really affected or impacted by this. We're all struggling to understand it. And I feel like I've gleaned a little bit of information today from your presentations. It feels like I'm peeling an onion a little bit, but the takeaway seems to be, in response to my initial question a couple minutes ago, it seems like what the issue of sustainability is, you're gonna measure the flow or the levels of the water. And if there's some number that has been developed that is a sustainability number, and then at some point in time, you'll choke it down if we get too far down below that.
and that's, in a simple term, yes, that's what it
I'm a
is.
simple guy.
There was a lot of studies went through and we determined, we came up with the threshold. And then there's a procedure for, as it drops below that, to get it in these management objectives.
Where do we find that data?
That's in the plans and
Oh, that's
get the website.
Okay, so that goes to my second point. I know I was snibbling and whining about not getting notice. I still believe that's true. But I think this also goes to the issue, like you can read between the lines from the rest of the people in this room who are articulating the similar issues that I'm having, which is, how does this work? How does that work? Where do I find the data? What's this information? And I don't think a really good job has been done to communicate that to those of us who are directly impacted and affected by this process. And so I strongly encourage you, when you have your discussion and your debate, we're not necessarily telling you, oh, hell no, get the hell out of here. We would like more information, maybe table this. Give us a chance to read the report, see what the heck is going on. Answer some of these questions about what's conservation doing, where does that impact here, and rethink this so that we all at least are on board. Because as somebody previously articulated, we're all in this together. We're trying to figure it out, but it just feels like the scales are being balanced on our backs.
I just want to respond to that. We've been working on this for 5 years. We have meetings on this. We have public notices that go out. And I know you people have lives to live. You have businesses to run. I know that. And that's probably why you weren't able to attend all the previous meetings we
No,
had.
sir, that's a kind of lawyer in the room. I admit that. I read that crap when it hits my mailbox. I haven't seen it. That's my issue. I'm the guy that when you buy a house who reads the HOA stuff. So I haven't seen it.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay,
Just a brief follow-up.
okay, because I'm not gonna have a bunch of repeat questions.
This is just a brief.
Come up to the front.
Again, Brian Macy, Future Water Company. Just in terms, my big concern is the sneaking up of multiple fees. And a lot of these have kind of come up in this meeting, but not entirely. The EMA did a great job of bringing in a consultant and talk about the cost of meter installations. If I recall from the 3 or 4 different options, it was like $4,000 to install a meter. So that's cost information for those of you that run a water system. And on top of that, and I know it's a proposal, but it's not approved yet, but also a 5-year recalibration requirement, which I have no idea what that costs. And I don't know if we have to get 2 meters, although I understand probably not, and how that works. Our water comes out of the ground, goes straight into a 5,000 gallon tank. No real way to insert another device to measure water. So please tell me how that's going to work and what it's going to cost. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any other comments? Ma'am, yeah. No, you're Bill.
Okay, Lori Donovan, the former board member of the Oakville States Mutual Water Company. I was trying to take notes here while everybody was talking, and I hope not to repeat things, but my notes are a little garbage here. First off, I wanted to thank everybody for being here and taking your time, because I know this is a mostly thankless job. And you're being strong-armed just like we are, because this is passed, and now you're forced to implement it. I think most everybody here who's come to join us is against what we're having to do. But I think there's a much bigger picture going on here, as we know, with our whole state government. But really, the focus, I believe, should be not on the symptom of having low groundwater. It should be the problem of why our groundwater is not being replenished. Why aren't we focusing on sewage that's, water that's getting flushed out to the ocean that has to complete the cycle by Mother Nature raining down upon us, instead of taking into account what has happened in the San Ynez Valley before all of this moved here, before there used to be thousands of springs in our local mountains that replenish groundwater. This was one of the most rich grazing areas before we even moved here. Why are we talking about the problem? Why aren't we doing controlled burns? It's not really a matter of, we're talking about conserving water. Let's replenish the water. We're talking, and I don't know that any of you sitting here can do anything in your position to help us to do this. It's up to the rest of us to be active and to talk to try to talk to the powers that be, so we can replenish our groundwater. So this sort of control is not even necessary. I would challenge everybody to take a better look at Proposition 218. And I believe that legally, perhaps we can plug some holes in that and go back to the California State Constitution, because that's where all this has to start. Here in this room, we're just getting an idea of what's going on. We're not actually able to make any changes sitting here today. We've all found that out. Let me look through my notes. Basically, when you look at the Constitution, it says whether it's federal or state, taxes must be proportionate. How's it actually going to be proportionate when there's some of these parcels that are being charged an acreage fee besides a fee for the water extraction, but that particular parcel doesn't even have water on it? It's just, a lot of us are dry land farmers. We wait for Mother Nature. And with the acreage fee, we're still going to get charged. The other thing I was looking at is, we're not really paying for water in this case. We're paying for a service. And what does that service provide to us? Are we truly getting the benefit from it? I think not.
Lori, we got 3 minutes to run. Could you wrap it up? No, you can.
Okay, I'll take that real quick here. Well, I'll just say, as everybody knows, control the water. Then you control the food, then you control the people. Everybody needs to stand up and fight this on a much bigger level. These people are only doing what they're being strong armed to do. So perhaps, we can find some legal representation that can help us all on a bigger, more broader level. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, my name is David Field. I just wanted to make one point. I keep hearing that 6,000 some letters were sent out. I think our small water company seems to be affected. I did not receive anything.
You're in Ballard Canyon, is that?
Ballard Canyon.
Okay. Seeing no more questions. Dan? We want to go into that response to you guys. Well, they're gonna respond.
Well, yeah, I think let's first check to see if there's anybody online. So, Charlotte,
If anyone online has a comment, you can unmute.
What's all? Yeah, can you pull something?
No one?
yeah, we pulled Solvang. They said if there was anybody at the city hall that's also participating in the meeting that wanted to comment, they would raise their hand. So I don't think there's anybody at the city hall that wants to make a comment.
Is there anybody online you're saying? It doesn't have any.
Doesn't look like anybody online wants to make a comment.
Nothing. Okay, so. Before we close the public hearing, we're gonna have responses here.
Sure, I can start. And excuse me if I don't have the names correct, but, Kelly Rose is one of the first speakers. Who, as I understand it, took issue, with the fact that, there was 6,200, with over 6,000 set up, and then it was rig voting. Again, and he suggested that there should be a ballot structure. Again, that's a different part of Proposition 218. That ballot structure is generally used for when you're levying an assessment. This is not an assessment. It's defined as fee of charge. Again, the signal law requires us to follow a certain procedure in the California Constitution. And he also kind of suggested that the people in ID1 and Solvang be excluded. However, when you go to the constitutional provision that sets the ground rules for how we do this process, the agency has to provide written notice by mail of the proposed fee to each record owner. And we worked with the county of Santa Barbara, and this will address some of the other comments, because there were some comments that people didn't receive the notice. The staff got all of the APN numbers and addresses from the county of Santa Barbara's records. That's how the record owner is defined in the statutes. So all the letters that went out were sent to whatever address is on record with us County of Santa Barbara. The next one was, I think I have the Mike, the last name incorrect, Mike Hastings, or I think maybe Mike came up again, yeah. It was comments about increased costs from the Department of Health. Of course, this agency is not involved in the Department of Health. And there were also several comments, and I think this is probably the most common comment about, hey, we're paying the conservation district, and why are we paying you? And I think as the chair explained, and as Director Merriman explained, the conservation district is a separate public agency. Its jurisdiction primarily does not overlap the EMA's jurisdiction. And my understanding, and I don't work for the conservation district, but my understanding is they play a somewhat different role than what this agency is doing. This agency has a specific statutory charge in this set of statutes that was adopted by the legislature in 2014. Then I think there was David Beard, or Beard or Beard, someone is on abuse for with 90. there was similar comments from him about the extraction fee being in addition to what he's already paying, to the conservation district. And then, excuse me, so I had to just Ed Mattachini.
That's good.
Okay. Just a couple of comments. You claim that this was double taxation. The conservation district, and this is a parcel tax. And this is not a parcel tax. This is based upon how much you pump. It's not based upon the size of your acreage or the fact that you own property. It's really how much is extracted.
Okay, so that, instead of being on the property tax, it should be you should have a separate bill with a fee on it. It's a tax. If it's paid through our property tax, it's a tax. You keep saying fees. It's not a fee.
What happens with
A
the,
fee is when you get your telephone bill. That's a fee.
yes, I understand that.
And if people seen that every month, they'd get upset about it. That's why it's put on the property tax. People just pay it, they don't even look at the property tax.
If you let me answer. See, again, this statute provides the options for how this agency collects these fees. It clearly puts it on, allows them to go to the county to put it on the property tax roll. And I think, at least on my property tax roll, when I look at it, yeah, I have fees. I also pay water district fees. I pay school bond fees. Those are not taxes. They're collected through that system because it's the most convenient and efficient way to get that money distributed. But they are not taxes. They are actually, they stand in a different lane within
And
Franklin.
that's how they get all this stuff passed, because if they payments a fee. If it was a tax, it would have to be voted on. This is how we get around it.
And you also had questions about the reservation. I think Mr. Grove maybe had this question as well about the two-map reservation, about whether they're paying. They are a separate, sovereign, independent agency. And the SIGMA law talks about Indian reservations and says they can participate in the process, but they're not obligated to. I can assure you, I've done transactions with other tribal nations, not this one, but other ones, and it's tricky. They are with their water rights held independent nation, and if they want to enter the process, they can. But if you want to have some enforcement power on them, you have to get them to waive their sovereign status and submit to the US court system. And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
I understand they're sovereign, but the water's not sovereign. The water is in the valley,
The water is owned by, is reserved by.
so the water's going down.
Okay, let's not,
Yeah.
let's stay.
We usually don't have a lot of interaction.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we can't answer the question, but I do have something I could add.
Sure.
And that is when the county established an agreement with the tribe on Camp 4, they were bound to limit their water to what they had studied in their environmental impact statement. And they actually had to retire some of their vines. So they're in another process, they're limited. They don't have an unlimited straw into the groundwater basin to take out as much as they want. They're limited.
If they're not metered, they're not living.
It turns out that that residential actually uses less water than agriculture. And
But if they're not metered, they're not limited.
there are ways of checking it.
I had questions from the
He's answering questions.
Well, I'm gonna give him a question to answer.
No, sir. Sir, I want you to follow what we're doing. I've given you several times to talk. Let our attorney answer the questions he's got. And then I'll give you.
Answer the question.
Mr. Gray raised another issue about, Richard Gray raised an issue about, again, about the reservation, whether they were legally exempt. Again, the answer to that is yes. And he also asked questions about municipal water providers. Essentially, will the cities be paying? And yes, if it's ID1, wherever the retailer is, retail provider, they will be paying. And whether they pass that on to their customers is up to those agencies. Mr. Roberts, he made some comments about, I think he was suggesting that the average small owner 310 acre feet, as I didn't quite understand it, but one of the issues that I identified in his talk was, that, there is we treat de minimis domestic owners of 2 acre feet or less, with a flat rate, based upon an estimated water use of 1.07. And I remind everybody that that estimated water use is subject to appeal if you're unhappy with it. And then it was, Michael St. Dennis, who came up and spoke as well. And he said he did not receive any notice. Again, we relied on the records that we received from the county of Santa Barbara per the statute and used those addresses to send it out to the APN numbers. And then he asked questions about what is this entity, this agency, supposed to do regarding sustainability? And I suggest that was more of a technical question than a legal question, but my understanding is that what's in the groundwater sustainability plan that was adopted and approved in 2022, and it's been on the agency's website for quite a while, so it's available for review. And then we heard from Michelle DeWord, and she mentioned that there was a meeting where she saw another agency using a different process for Prop 218. I can't speak to what she saw, but I think I explained earlier in this meeting that under Sigma, it tells this agency how to do this, and it tells us to go to this one section of the Constitution, which is a majority protest procedure. And so that's where we are. And we have a majority protest set forth in the Constitution, and we've met all those obligations. She also said she wanted 2 hearings on this. I can't speak to how many hearings the agency's had before I joined the agency, but I do recall there was a workshop where Mr. Guar was present and presented this whole rate study as well. Mr. Grove talked about whether the majority protest was established by this board. Again, I explained that was a constitutional requirement. Mr. Grimm, Henry Grimm approached on the same issue, and I think I answered his questions. Mr. Hadley also said they didn't receive a letter and what the Conservation District does. Again, we use the record owners as the data resides with the county and the Conservation District issue. I think we've addressed. And then Brenda Huntsman asked whether the protest, in my own handwriting, but I think she was asking if the protest count, majority protest is a state requirement. The answer to that is yes. And just one note, it was, I think under Governor Brown, not Governor Newsom, when Sigma was passed, it was 2014. Lynn Levine, Logan, asked questions about per meter parcels, and I think the chair responded to some back and forth with the chair. I think the chair responded to her issues. Then there's other questions from Mr. Hadley about what does the Conservation District provide. And then Mr. Switzer, he asked where are we getting water conservation activities from the EMA GSA, and I think the chair responded that was set forth in the GSP, the Groundwater Sustainability Plan that's online. Mr. Clay asked about future water meter, if they are installed, who pays how much, and what the cost is to read it. I don't see any legal issues there. I don't know if you have a response to that, Dan.
I mean, I think cost for installing water meters is not included in the budget or the revenue forecast for this organization. So presumably, if that were to become a requirement, that would be a requirement of the property owner. There have been presentations to this board about the types of meters and the costs associated with those meters. They vary based on size. Smaller meters cost a lot less than larger agriculture or irrigation meters, but that information is available on the EMA GSA's website. We could probably make it dedicated. It was part of a meeting agenda packet, but we could probably find a special place for that on the website or where information about well metering can be found.
Could you talk about how we're anticipating people report who needs the meter.
Under the proposed ordinance for well metering, the property owners would be in charge of their own, meter reading and reporting. So they, once a month, go out, read the meter, take a picture of it with your cell phone, and then every 6 months you report that to the GSA. It's the procedure that's proposed in the well metering ordinance. I think it'd also be helpful to mention that the county, I believe, or the December County Water Agency has funding to help pay for meter installation.
Sure, yeah, Matt Young, San Barbara County Water Agency, we do have a subsidy program, does not cover the full cost of the meter, but if your GSA requires meters, we will give you a reimbursement of up to $500. It's limited there for tax reasons. Obviously, it's not covering the whole thing, but it's something, so throughout countywide.
Continue on, I'm getting close. Mr. Fields, spoke to, why am I paying the conservation district? Again, that issue of the two agencies, I think we've addressed. And, I think it was Jonette Field, asked where is the consultant report? I think that, was explained with the reference to the website. Michael St. Dennis, suggested there was a dearth of information and, not a good job of communicating as you question the board to table this for more information. I know there's a history I think the chair responded to in that regard. With Mr. Brian Macy, he talked about there being multiple fees again, I think implicating the conservation district. And then I had Lori Donovan, who was talking about replenishment, and she mentioned Proposition 218 and stated that as I understand it, the taxes must be proportional, and if this is an acreage fee, I just want to respond to that. When she said the taxes must be proportional, this is not a tax, it's a fee or charge, and in my view, it's directly proportional. The more you pump, the more you pay. There's no spread or allocated cost. It's very, very concise and tight. That's why using a volumetric measure for your fee is, I think there's no room for claiming that it's out of proportion, that I should be paying less than I'm paying. You pump 2 acre feet, you pay the fee for 2. And lastly, the issue is it's not an acreage fee. Again, it's a volumetric fee. It's not based upon how much property you own. It's based on how much water you extract. And then Mr. Heel, I think he was the last speaker. He said that he did not receive a letter. Again, we used the records we received from the county. We had all those letters were mailed out. And that concludes my response to the issues.
I have a question. Did we get any, how the post office send your return? Like, nobody at this address. Did we get any of those?
We did, and I did not handle that logistical end, but I'll turn it over to Dan on that.
Yeah, so we received a number of returned notices. We reviewed each of those notices to verify that the address printed on the notice matched the address in the county assessor records. In that case, we didn't really have any other option getting that to the people. In a very select few cases, the address was different. I think there was maybe 12, 13. Where the address that was printed on the notice had been abbreviated or something by the printer. And so we corrected those and resent those notices back out.
Good. Do you guys have any questions?
I guess I have a comment and questions. The comment is that water obviously is fluid and complex. And my understanding at least is that the parent conservation district is regulating surface water, riparian water. And that is governed by water rights, both prior appropriation and riparian water rights. And that's being overseen by the conservation district. Groundwater in the state of California has never been regulated. Where most other states do regulate it. And we're really one of the last, if not the last, to try to come to terms with making it sustainable. I think we probably should have started with a bigger picture view of this and talking about what you'll get for your money. And maybe Dan could talk a little bit about what the management measures are and the two different measures of sustainability we have in the different formations, so that people get a better sense of what is in the groundwater management plan and where we're heading to try to make sure that we do make it sustainable, because that really is the point of all of this. And I think we didn't spend enough time on that.
Yeah, so why don't I start, and then if there were others that were involved in the development of the plan that maybe can speak to it in even more detail. They were, there when it was crafted, but, in the plan, there are certain sustainable management criteria that are established for the different parameters that we use to monitor the sustainability of groundwater. We've established minimum thresholds for water levels that are defined as if we get water levels drop below these minimum thresholds or levels and enough water levels drop below them for enough period of time, that's an undesirable result and an indication of the basin isn't sustainable. And that's how we monitor. Yeah, so there's some specific mechanisms.
And would you talk about the formations and the monitoring system, how that works?
I think that might be a good place for Matt to talk, as, the Santa Barbara County Water Agency does the monitoring on behalf of the EMA GSA.
Sure, yeah, I guess, so real quick, so Dan mentioned, we have a monitoring network. County and the USGS have been monitoring these wells for, in some cases, 40+ years. We have monitoring wells throughout the basin where we regularly check groundwater levels. Okay, some of those are in the Paso Robles Formation, some are in the Cariaga Formation, two different subsurface geologic units, different types of sand and gravel that are holding the water, okay? And so as Dan said, we set levels where we say, okay, if we fall below these levels in the Paso Robles Formation, there's gonna be some problems. If we fall below these levels in the Cariaga Formation, there's gonna be some problems. So the GSA is continually monitoring these levels and checking and seeing, and then to deal with, to maintain sustainability, as one gentleman was saying, what are we doing? There's a set of tiers of management actions, things to do. The first tier is establishing as a fee and putting on meters. There's been studies shown paying for groundwater pumping goes down by roughly 10 to 15%. There's a pretty small deficit in the basin. We're not pumping that much more in the long term than is being replenished naturally. So that's going to get us a long way, we think, towards getting the basin into sustainability. Putting on meters, same thing. Once you know how much you're using, you can say, oh, maybe I'm using too much. Maybe I can irrigate a little less. Similarly, there have been studies that show that drops water use significantly. We're hoping that's it. That's it. Tier 1, we do these, we're done, the basin sustainability. If not, there's several more tiers. We can look into finding ways to infiltrate stormwater. We can look into recycled water. We can look into demand management, which is code for what we don't want to be here, right? You mentioned Cuyama. I work in basins throughout the county in Cuyama. There are pumping restrictions. That's what we're trying to avoid. Okay, but that's on the table, right? That's an option. The DWR, the state wants to know that we are covered in all circumstances. So the goal is to make sure we don't hit these critical levels. And if we do, we go through our tiers and manage the basin sustainably. And as we're watching it, we're going to adapt the plan. The plan gets reviewed every 5 years. If there's problems, we hear from the community that there are issues with the way the plan's written. The plan will get revised and we iteratively improve and watch the basin as it goes forward. And I say I'm a member of the Santa Barbara County Water Agency. We're one of 5 members of this board. The GSA has its own staff now, but until just recently, it's been staffed with member agencies, players in the back there, folks from the Conservation District who have been kind of staffing the GSA on a volunteer from our agency basis. Thanks.
Thanks.
If I might, I think it'd be helpful to talk about the governor's executive order. We don't have a management measure that really prevents new people from getting well permits, but that was something that the governor in the drought had us as an agency checking to make sure that new wells weren't going to lead to undesirable results. And why that's important is I think that that protects existing, groundwater users in our basin. And, it's not necessarily the way we'll go in the future, but I do believe that this is an effort to protect, all of you in this room who use groundwater and to make sure that we know what we're using so that we can use it more effectively and be a good neighbor.
I have a question, at least clarification on the answer.
Can you, okay, you had your hand up, anybody else, and then Hadley, is that your name? You had your hand up? What, okay, I'll give you one more bite at the apple, I'll let this gentleman, and then we'll call. Yes, sir.
Stony Shear. I was just wanting a little bit more clarification on his answer to Lori's question. I guess what I was thinking, my comprehension of it, there was actually a 2-fee system. You're gonna get charged for the acre foot of water you use them, then also there was an acre per property, you get charged an assessment fee of $2 or something.
No, that's his central management area, that's their.
Okay, I was thinking all of them were the same.
Ours is gonna be volume metric, what you use, what you take.
Good question.
Just got 2 questions. Number 1, what's this gonna be called, this fee? Is it groundwater production? Is that what we're paying for?
Water extraction fee.
So it's not groundwater production.
Basically, it's just groundwater extraction, what it is a production of water, but it is.
Well, we're already paying for that. I'm just curious. And if we're, I have one other question. If we're really concerned about water, why are we pushing all these new homes and everything around the valley? And all these new residents? Why do we do that if we're concerned about water? Because more people use more water.
Thanks, sir. Okay. Okay, everybody. At this point, we'll now close the public hearing. Please note that the board will consider adoption of the ordinance for the groundwater extraction fee as the next item in this meeting. At this point now, anyone have any protest letter you haven't gotten in yet? If you have one, please hand it in right now. And yeah, we'll take a 5-minute break. We'll let staff go through the protests and we'll report back. Thank you very much.
It's. They're gonna build up those credits. That's their source, and it's all that. So I'm not following. We get because to get to the benefit, we got to come over us. So you see those spots, but we're getting the benefits of our balance, you know, that's. We don't upgrade dollars to 5 minutes. Yeah. We mentioned conservation district. We added helicopters. And
So you could.
Okay, everybody. We will, at this time, have a report back of the tally of written protests.
I can report, Mr. Chair, that, the district, up to the time of the closing of the public hearing, received 182 protests, 20 legal objections, for a total of 202. And also that the district received 206 return notices through the mailing process. And at this point, that would be a total of 408, I believe, if I read it correctly, if we included those returned as protest.
And what's the threshold?
50% of
Yeah.
6,000.
So 3,000.
3,112.
This is yours.
Okay, so at this time, we're gonna say, we're counting the returned letters that were 206 into as, count them as a no, that gives us total of 408. Perfect, okay, thank you. Okay, now we will go to action item 4. 4A, review and consider adoption of the Groundwater Extraction Fee Ordinance. Okay,
Are we gonna put that up on the screen so people can see it?
I don't think we're set up to do that, and I don't think that they would be able to see it if we did, unfortunately. I mean, it's the ordinance that you do have in your packet is, you know, there's a lot of text that, right, a lot of something, but. Yeah, so thank you, Chair Jones. We have in the board's consideration, the groundwater extraction fee ordinance. This was an ordinance prepared, that would enable the board to adopt a groundwater extraction fee for the San Ynez River Valley Groundwater Basin Eastern Management Area Groundwater Sustainability Agency.
Board, you've had a chance to review that. Any questions on that ordinance? And then, sorry, the ordinance number for that will be
22502.
But one more time, slower.
2025-02.
Okay, 202502, our second one.
2025,
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so,
So I guess I had a comment. I went also to the CMA meeting on Monday. And there was a lot of good speakers expressing similar remarks that I heard tonight. One thing that I thought we could do is a lot of this is all focused on, forgive the word hammer, but it feels like people are getting hammered by this because of the fees and they're surprised by it. And there were some good comments made about how a lot of the water managers that we have, as well as the landowners, are, they're with us. They want long-term sustainability on their property, and they are doing measures to, as Mary put it, a previous meeting that we had on this, giant funnels to try and channel like rainwater and excess stormwater that they get plugged on the property back into the ground to help recharge the aquifer. And it just seems like everything in here it's a fee, and we're going to explain all that. And we did at our last meeting, add 2 new members for the CAG. Welcome. I think part of our direction should be to task our CAG and water group to maybe help us come up with a process. We could put it into a future provision to the GSP, that there's also a credit for doing that good judicious management of our groundwater. So I drafted some words. I'll throw it out. You guys can tell me what to think, but it would be added item number 10 to this ordinance number 2025-02. So the item 10 would be direct the EMA CAG to work with the water group to brainstorm how to create a process to pursue a credit to offset pumping charges to landowners that are significantly recharging the aquifer on their land and diverting excess stormwater into tributaries to enhance San Ynez River surface water. This, we call it task force output, would be to draft an update to the next GSP revision to include a credit process as a proposed project for the EMA, in the future. And that's what the GSP is supposed to have management actions in there that, we're currently working to, and it's helpfully funded by the grant that we received from the state for $5.5 million. But we ought to have another mechanism as part of this process where, those that do the right thing in managing the water and helping with the recharge of our basin, not just straw taking out, there's a way in which for them to get rewarded for that good behavior, I guess. So I think that would be a carrot as opposed to a hammer, and it would be something that we could be implementing as this agency evolves to recharge the valley's water supply.
yeah. Good comment, but I'm thinking, wouldn't that be better placed in our plan? When we update our plan. That would
Right,
be-
but I mean, this board, we determine policy, so we can make the direction to go with the policy aspect, and I think we should use our CAG, our water group, to help with that.
Right,
I would be open to the idea, but not maybe as an amendment that we come back to, because we've done so much work determining, getting experts to consult with us, how we measure these things, that we're going to incentivize and create some credits. We need to back that up with guideposts and.
Right, and that would be the process that.
That's gonna take more time than we have.
No, I know, I'm not trying to say we're gonna figure that all out tonight, of course not. But what we are gonna do is we're gonna put in place the guidance to staff and, using our CAG and water group to help formulate that good policy. They have a way in which to go about getting a credit.
John,
Go ahead.
I wonder if we could move this with that direction aside, not incorporate it as number 10 into this ordinance, but to give additional direction to staff that we want to incentivize and come up with methods and make that a high priority. We probably have to look at our work plan and move things around a bit. But I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I think incentives in general, right? Maybe there might be multiple methods to create some motivators.
Mhm.
So I think it's a great idea. I don't want it to
burden where we are right now.
Yeah, but I can withdraw it from the resolution of ordinance in this case. It's just, I feel that that's something that we need to do to respond to all the good comments that we've gotten tonight. And the other two, the WMA and CMA is getting similar comments. And I think those boards should also be looking at following, putting in place some kind of a process that would allow that. Now, so Dan, you were at the WMA meeting. Was there anything said there that was along these lines? How do we reward those that are doing the right thing with their land, recharging our aquifer, and helping with surface water?
I'm not recalling any specific.
It was mentioned at the CMA. So.
Okay, yeah, I'm not recalling anything specific to that. We got a lot of comments at the WMA as well. I don't remember anything specific to our credit process.
Okay.
Steve, did you have a comment?
I did not.
Joan?
Oh, so I'd be prepared to make a motion that we adopt the groundwater extraction fee ordinance as presented with direction to staff that we develop, that they develop with the CAG, in consultation with the CAG, some incentives for landowners to engage in groundwater recharge. I'll second that.
Okay, now, should we public comment?
It's moved and seconded, so it's before the body and take public comment.
Okay, public comment on ordinance number 2025-02. Randy?
I just wanted to make a comment as one of the parties and one of the staff involved in helping arrive at the fee. There was a extreme effort to keep the cost down. In other words, it's clearly only what we need to sustain the EMA's business. If we start looking at providing, and I think it's a great idea. I just want to understand, if you start looking at providing credits for individuals for provide, to do the saving addition add to the groundwater, the cost for the running the EMA remains the same. So now it's like when you give a senior discount or whatever, you make everybody else pay a little bit more. So I just want to make sure you understand that you need to crack that nut.
Yeah, I know there's a timeline. That's
yeah. So
we've been doing this for 10 years, Randy.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
My thinking is that as the fees are able to be scaled back, as we're looking at the out years, as was described in the study, that maybe there's a time phasing associated with the credit and a process that's been well thought out. That's what I was pushing for.
I appreciate that.
I just want to put one more comment out there for context. The comment was made earlier that we have grant money available to us that's helping to fund the launch of the agency and all the work that's being done. But that grant money also has a time boundary on it. After you complete that work, we will not become eligible for that reimbursement. So anything else we do right now, they're already overburdened and we're asking them to do a lot of staff and just I'm sensitive to that.
Yeah, so I
We don't want to lose the money.
there's many tiers to this. So that's why I said the CAG and the water, they're kind of outside the staff, but they're the ground floor for the policy that we have adopted in GSP. They were very active in that process in members developing that with a lot of feedback from staff. So I'm not saying that we overburden the staff, but I think it's important that we demonstrate to our public that we care and that we're going to take this seriously. Those are the other comments that we got in this project.
I think we care. I think we take it seriously. So, okay.
Mayor.
Yeah.
I just want to introduce myself. My name is Mary Hayden and I'm the alternate ag representative. So I'm not part of one of the agencies. I was not really elected to the board as being a board member, just the alternate. I think this is great. I'm also one of the original CAG members, which is the Citizens Advisory Group. And I think this is a great idea, and I think it would be something that the CAG can just sit, chew on for a long time and really use it as a brain parts. No, I'm not done yet.
It took a breath.
I was gonna say brainstorm, but.
Brainstorm, there we go, yeah. I. I'm not excited about this fee as I believe most of you are, but I also have been involved in this long enough to know that this is probably one of those, evil necessities, at least for the next 5 years. And hopefully, once we get things going, the next 5 years, it's gonna be a busy time for us. In my opinion, what we really have to do is look at the budget, because that's what, is it the denominator or the numerator? It's the numerator. That decides how much the fees are ultimately. So, I'd love your help with that.
Yes, sir.
I like the, ordinance, proposed, I like the idea for a tag, I mean, where it's the calculus fully would help. Okay, so,
What is the $5 million date, the end date? You said that it expires. It's in the 2026, is that?
It's actually March of 2026. That's what it's the paper.
Yeah.
Well, we need to
Have to get all this stuff.
spend the money
18.
before, complete the projects, spend the money before March of 2026.
And we only get a portion. The
Right,
funding
one
is for the
third,
entire thing.
Essentially. So they're moving out, they're working hard to try and master that grant.
Yeah, just a quick public comment. I'm Santa Barbara County Water Agency. I think if you want to explore new management actions like incentives for a recharge or something like that, your consultant is going to soon be starting underpaid for by the grant, 5-year review of the GSP. And that might fit best in that process as they review the GSP, evaluate management actions, and evaluate the potential for new ones. That might be a nice kind of.
I agree, however, the CAG is anxious to get started now with the water group. So they can start
GSI starting like this fall.
and transition to the plan.
For board's consideration.
Perfect.
Good. Good input. Okay, no more public comment on it?
If there's any public comment online, you may unmute now. No public comment.
Nothing online? Okay. Okay, I heard a motion and a second. We have a roll call vote.
Director Hartman,
Aye.
Director Arona,
Yes.
Director Maramy, yes, Director Hayden.
Yeah.
Here goes.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Moving on. Action item 4B, review and consider adoption of resolution adopting appeal process for levy of groundwater extraction fees and contract for collection of special taxes and assessment and other charges, and the resolution authorizing groundwater extraction fee charges to be collected on the tax bill. Wow, that was a mouthful. Okay, Dan, take it away.
Yes, so this is kind of more of an administrative item. You know, that the EMA GSA adopted the fee in the previous item. There are certain requirements to actually get charges placed on the county tax roll. And so we included a number of those items here. And then also we've included a resolution for the board adopting an appeal process. We've talked about that appeal process quite a bit today. That's the way that if you, a property owner takes issue with the charge that's applied to their property, they have a mechanism to appeal that to the EMA GSA. So it's really 3 separate items here. We combine them and hope that we can move through this quickly. But we would, ask the board to adopt each of the items included herein.
Okay. Board members, any input? I got typo stuff on the first page. third to last paragraph, it's the big paragraph. Second sentence of that paragraph says, has a reasonable opportunity to address F concerns associated with that. Okay, a space between associated that and F, I believe it should be addresses the concerns, I believe. We have those corrected? Okay, Dan nodded his head, got them?
Yes, sorry, verbal consent, yeah.
Okay. Other board members, any other input?
I just want to point out that there are two steps to the appeal. The protester is, does even not agree with the decision. There's yet another opportunity to submit.
Okay, so they have like 2 bites at the apple in the appeal. Very good point. Okay, public comment on this. Seeing none, okay, we have a resolution here. And we're making certain. Also including that Dan is we need a number. Okay, 20.
Yeah, so we will add the resolution number 09. What's that?
And I believe
I
that
guess the 3, but
2025-03, is that correct?
This is a resolution on the ordinance, so I'm not sure. I'll have to figure out what the final portions. I don't have that on this.
Okay. Do I hear a motion?
We don't have it.
Dan, how should we?
Should move the item, which would be all 3.
Move the item.
Okay. I'll move to accept the item of. Second.
I have a motion and a second by Joan Hartman. Elizabeth Rona made the motion. Roll call vote.
Director Hartman,
Aye.
Director Ronan,
Yes.
Director Merrily. Aye. Director Hayden,
Aye.
Chair Jones,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay. Moving on. Go to 4C. Review recommendations and consider approval of hydrological consultant for Prop 68 grant component 5 monitoring program improvement. And execution of associated amendment to the cost share and reimbursement agreement as ordered. Okay.
Ready for me? This is also a multi-part item. We've talked quite a bit about the grant at the meeting today. This is one of those grant tasks, component 5, improving the groundwater monitoring network. We need to hire a hydrogeologist that can design monitoring wells and oversee construction of monitoring wells primarily. To do that, it was identified by staff that it would be more cost effective to hire one firm to do the component 5 projects in all 3 management areas. So we released an RFP, we received 5 proposals. We evaluated those proposals based on the criteria identified in the staff report and have a recommendation to award the contract to Geosystems. And so if the board concurs with that award, we then developed a breakdown of cost for each of the management areas for Geosystems total cost. And then we have a number of contractual documents that were developed so that we can split the costs amongst the 3 management areas. And those include an amendment to a previously adopted cost sharing and reimbursement agreement, a task order for this work that will be included in that cost sharing and reimbursement agreement. And then we've also additionally included in the packet the professional services agreement that the central management area would be entering into with Geosyntec that then references the cost share agreement. So it's a the way that we've identified that we can share costs and manage all the management areas where beneficial.
Question?
Yeah.
Since we're trying to control cost here, is there a not to exceed on this?
Yes, so the EMA's portion of the not to exceed is shown in table 1. It would be $155,115.
That's why we have the contingency.
And that does include a contingency. And then as this is grant funded, the EMA has $401,000, $401,004 of grant funding for component 5s, tasks 3 through 6.
And then, Dan, could you go over, I remember last meeting, we didn't have all the bids. Could you go over it? Just, I believe it's on page 80.
Yeah, so there was another request that we provide the breakdown of the evaluation of the proposals. So there's a table on page 80. You know, again, we've received 5 proposals. 3 of the proposals were determined to be non-responsive due to missing items within the proposal. Of the remaining 2 proposals, they were evaluated based on a technical approach. Let me see, let's get the criteria. Overall completeness, as Joe mentioned, quality of technical approach, and then there was criteria specific to the level of effort for field oversight, which is a critical component of these projects, making sure that you have oversight during the drilling of the monitoring wells. You get one shot at drilling that well and getting it right. So it's critical that you have proper construction oversight, and then cost was also factored. Based on that criteria, Geosystems was the top ranked for these services.
Okay,
Yeah, I don't think so.
okay, sure, Mary, question.
So both the WMA and the CMA had their meetings already, and have they already approved this?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah. I can speak for the WMA, I believe the CMA did.
Public comment on this item. Yes,
Got a
sir.
question. So how many monitoring wells are you proposing and to what depth versus the existing monitoring that goes on at 200 and something plus wells in the valley already? Why is there a need for additional monitoring wells as opposed to the existing ones that have been monitored since the late 50s?
Yeah, so we're for the EMA specifically, we're proposing 1 new monitoring well and 2 piezometers, which are shallow wells designed to measure the surface groundwater interaction. Those were identified. There are areas in the GSP that were identified as data gaps. And while there are a number of wells in the San Diego Basin, there are significant data gaps specifically in the EMA. And so these wells would be intended to fill those data gaps. They're scoped to be drilled up to 700 feet deep to try to capture water level and water quality information in both portions of the aquifer. And so that is the intent of this project.
It's just a project under the existing grant that we have, so
And
if we
yes,
do this work within the time constraints, then we would be fully reimbursed, right?
yes, and yeah, we're required to do this. Well, yes, it's part of the grant scope.
Your name, I forgot your name.
Yeah, like
Fine. We talked earlier on this, and you have how many wells? Just
one.
One well, okay. Yeah, it happened, how deep is well, 700?
No, it was 300.
300, okay, so would that meet the requirements of just depth?
It depends on where it's located in the basin.
If it was located, and more data is better, right?
Yeah,
And it's currently being monitored.
And it's being monitored.
Yes.
So he has data on it. So if he would provide data to us voluntarily, we could possibly use it.
It's already in there.
What's that?
He's in
Yeah, one of my staff is already monitoring as well.
Oh, already is.
Yes.
Okay, great. I just didn't want to miss the opportunity to get more data. Okay, thank you very much.
and we have a subsequent agenda item to do an evaluation of other opportunities to leverage existing wells to improve our monitoring network as well.
Very good. But this was 4C, right?
But we haven't voted.
Right, we need to have a motion and we need to have a second for this item.
Oh, I think,
No.
We have a, do we?
I use for C.
Okay, Joan moved to 4C. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Brett seconds 4C. We have a roll call vote, please.
Director Hartman,
Aye.
Director Arona,
Yes.
Director Merrigan,
Aye.
Director Hayden,
I,
Chair Jones.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Okay, moving on to 4D. Review and consider adoption of an EMA GSA well metering and recording ordinance. Okay, Dan, give us an update on that one, the status of it.
Yeah, so earlier this year, we brought a draft well meter reporting ordinance. Actually, we also brought a draft well inventory ordinance, which the board did adopt already. At our last board meeting, there was a request from, one of the directors in particular, but I think the full board to bring back the well meter and reporting ordinance based on interest that people were receiving and what people in the EMA were wanting to know what meters are gonna be eligible for use in a potential future metering program. So we fast tracked this item and bringing it back to the board for your consideration tonight. So to, respond to that request. I would say that, we haven't had the opportunity to run this through the CAG and some of the other technical groups, which, because of the timeline that we're trying to move this forward with, but we do have it here for your board's consideration, and so present it to the board. As is, it is largely unchanged from the draft ordinance that was presented earlier this year. I think the major difference was addition and item 2A, 1A as the addition of a potential de minimis extractor self-certification program. So that would be a program for people to provide technical information to the EMA GSA, identifying that they're a de minimis extractor would fall under the de minimis extraction rules, which include not requirement meter versus pumpers, rural residential pumpers that may be pumping more than 2 acre-feet per year and would not fall within the de minimis extractor criteria.
Board comments on this?
so I know that in the other GSAs that my family's property is part of, we did the well registration first and then did metering. So this seems almost a little bit backwards. I understand, the desire to be able to have criterion for people to know what the the well meters have to be. I'm not sure this is exactly where that has to be put out. But what I'm really concerned about is that, it's asking that meters be put on within a year. I'm not sure that it's going to get it for a long time, financially especially.
Yeah, thank you for raising that. That is another significant change from when it was presented as a draft. As a draft, the timeframes were left blank. And we felt, well, if we're gonna bring it forth consideration, we should at least put out a proposed timeline. But again, it's been done, at an accelerated pace without the opportunity to really run it through the CAG and some of the other stakeholders.
So the CAG hasn't weighed in on it, but do you have an opinion on what you think might be reasonable? 18 months or 2
Yeah.
years?
Good feedback. Be good feedback to know what you think is.
Potentially 18 months, but so my family, we have at least 5 wells we're gonna have to meter. So that's gonna be a huge extent that we don't have to do.
So it's been for a couple of years, is that?
Right, so I mean, I would prefer it to be a 2-year process personally. I don't know how others feel. But
Other comments? Yeah.
Do we know what other GSAs are doing?
Well, I speak for the WMA. The WMA has not brought forward, I think, either a draft or the final well meter orders for consideration. I think some of the discussion that, quite a bit of discussion, as you would imagine, but I think some of the discussion was focused around finishing the demonstration project. That, is designed, so component 2 of the Prop 68 grant, the demonstration projects that are designed to better inform us about the accuracy of the different methodologies for measuring or estimating extracted groundwater. So that is something that currently they're considering. I think there's another sort of pretty big difference in the WMA and CMA that they're currently reporting to the Conservation District. The Conservation District has multiple methods of reporting that include metering but don't require it. So there's crop duty factors that are likely for restorative usages. So I would say the EMA is out front compared to at least to the WMA and potentially my understanding of the CMA.
Bill, can you comment on the CMA? Are you guys there, Bill?
So like the WMA, there are ad hoc committees that are currently looking at different types of metering requirements. And it just hasn't been as much of a priority as Mr. Heimel mentioned that, there are currently reporting going on there, and there is a wide known registration, like all the wells are more or less registered with the Conservation District. So those two GSAs know what's going on in terms of their basins. And so there's not that priority to get that done. But I think the intent is to actually take what the EMA's already drafted up and review that with our ad hoc committees and, possibly put something out that is aligned so that we have some coordination between the 3 GSAs and we don't have 3 greatly different metering ordinances out there. So we don't want one requiring bananas, the other one requiring Confluence. So we're trying to make some alignment there.
But we're gonna go first.
Sounds like it, yeah.
I am cooperating with the metering system now, and what it is very interesting, I didn't know they could do that. I was smart in my ranch and we register the meter, go to some guy and that guy who links the well meter to the land, and then you make sure you have this, and then you plot it on the land, and then it's all, and they claim accuracy rates within 5%. It requires a meter to test it, the testing program to test at different levels of the pump. So you can, in theory, do this without a meter. You could just use an electric meter. If you test the water, say this pump, this water level produces 100 gallons per minute, this water level produces 85, this one produces 65, you can know with pretty good accuracy how much water that well is producing without installation of a mechanical water meter. That may be an alternative that may solve a lot of these problems.
Any other staff comments here?
May I say something? Yeah, so I know that Director Circle has been getting a lot of questions from agriculturists in the EMA, specifically about what meters they can use. So I see where this can be helpful so they know what the parameters are. Because I understand we don't really want to say, well, you can use this meter, but you can't use that meter. Did that make sense?
It does. It sounds like we need more time to figure it out.
Well, I think this basically is just saying, okay, it has to be calibrated to a plus or minus 5%. It has to be a flow meter of some sort. It has to have, what's it called? The totalizer. So it's, I don't want to say it's vague, but at least it gives you an idea of what is necessary. I think I think what Doug or Director Circle is hearing is that ag people are not feeling very confident with the ET satellite stuff and want to be exact with the meter. And so having this would give them an idea of what meters are acceptable.
So we've given them enough guidance and
As long as we're okay with what this says in terms of guidance, yes.
Okay. Oh, I had a question for Matt, for other GSAs, what time frame have you seen for adopting meters? What's reasonable?
That's a good question. So in Kuyama, it has much fewer pumpers, or something like 20 pumpers. They gave a year. Those meters. Katie, you remember San Antonio just approved theirs, do you recall?
It's also.
Also 1 year, yeah. And then Carpinteria been going through a series of public meetings. I don't believe they've adopted yet. I think they'll adopt it this summer. I believe they're on the year also, right off the top.
Are those smaller than us though? And therefore, if we need more time, if we have more that we're trying to provide guidance to, that they should have more time to do it, just because, 20 sounds like a year is feasible. But
Well, so each pumper has however many wells that they have, right? So
okay, so I'm just trying to, is it apples to apples in any of those with the 1 year?
and all of these are requiring pumpers to meter wells on their own property. So whether it's 1,000 people or 20 people, it's still people monitoring wells on their own property.
I think one of the differences is that so many installers here.
Right.
So there's like Kenny Fisher and there's Oliver, and then there's a certain amount of people that so.
You gotta allow time so that they can get in the queue to then get it done.
The other thing is, San Antonio's been, San Antonio's been, they did the whole well registration. And that was another year and a half or something. I mean, they've been doing, so people are already on board. Most people.
What do you think would be reasonable, 2 years?
Yes.
And for those who think
Want to do
that,
it tomorrow, they can do it
yeah,
tomorrow.
some of those who may think the aerial study is too high estimates, that nothing prevent them from putting their meters on as soon as possible, as long as they meet the standards.
Right.
Be good.
Right.
Yeah, but some of the smaller operations may just be accepting the estimating process.
Correct.
Just because they don't want to incur the cost.
Right, that's it.
I think 2 years is reasonable. Here's the thing we want to avoid, just to play devil's advocate, is that people get the notice and then they can, well, I have 2 years. And then no one does anything, and gang the whole effort up for the 3 companies and they still.
And the whole 3 months.
2 years go
Yeah.
by, we're still not where we need to be, because I think what's different about our area is we have so many gaps to cover, right?
Right.
We have a lot of.
So do we need to communicate some bias for velocity and urgency to act?
I would just say, look, I'm willing to take a listen to this. I think we need to get more feedback from the CAG, so I'm willing to look, staff's done what we asked them to do, which is you have to bring these things back. And they did that, right? But let's get a little more feedback, and can we come back and revisit it in next month's meeting? But still, more feedback.
Could we say that we like the ordinance and we like the parameters of what those well meters are? So yes, if you need to go get a meter now, go get one of these meters. What we're curious about is what the time frame is. I think that's what
I think
Director Sherfield's concerned.
I'm concerned about it too, and maybe we end up at 18 months or something like that. I don't feel comfortable making a judgment on that without more input.
And I sure hate to give a well owner some information that isn't exactly what we want and change on them after they already purchased. I don't want to do that. So. Yeah, I think just looking at this in my comments, I go back to looking at first the typos I don't like, and then I look for sections that aren't in here. Blank says refer to section 3. Well, there is no section 3. And it says refer to section or section I8 or II, and there aren't any. So I don't like a food that's not in there. I don't like blank check, sorry. So I think my point is, let's go back, let's get the other information from CAG, let's do a really good job on it and do it the first time. That's fine.
Can you bring that back in July?
Is that, when is the cat, when's the next tag? Is that reasonable?
We don't currently have a scheduled CAG meeting. Bringing it back in July with CAG review, I think would be a challenge. Okay,
So August,
August would be a lot more doable.
That work, Mary?
yeah, Mary, is that gonna work with the K?
We don't have any CAG meetings scheduled yet, so.
Okay, then, from what I'm hearing. Oh, yes.
When it's time for public comment, I have questions.
Okay.
Okay, so, when I was looking at it, it talks about you take pictures and you hold on to those for 6 months and then you submit. And then review form, which isn't in there, it would be nice to kind of understand more about what the submission process would look like. I was speaking for a mutual water company, we're already metered. So, we could start on this almost immediately, and be very accurate things, but just what is that submission process? Am I gonna take the pictures, print them on, a piece of paper, stuff them in a big envelope and send them to somebody? Or is it gonna be an online? Just like a little bit more detail around how this whole reporting process will work, because it's not clear right now. Other than that, we'll take pictures and there'll be a form to fill out, but I don't know where it goes after that. So that's, I think, from a practicality standpoint, something that would be needed before this thing gets approved, just so that we know, unless there's another mechanism to communicate that.
Dan, you can tell that?
Yeah.
You got that, okay, but you had real valid concerns. Yes, sir.
Just a quick one, regarding the meters, plus or minus, or 5% accuracy. That information says to me, but I thought I heard, that there's only a handful of installers, so if that's the case, and not the local plumber, the local well driller can install those, we should have the names of approved installers.
Yeah, we won't recommend it, but we'll have.
Just a list. Thank you.
Get that, Dan?
I think that's where I think the CAG and, some board members would be really helpful. They have a better understanding of who are the local qualified individuals or companies to perform that work.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so kind of reading this for the first time, reading between the lines, but definitely if you're going to request owners to put on a meter, you should make a list of like 2 or 3 meters that are approved in a certain range of accuracy. Most meters are now within 2%. And are they direct reading totalizers or whatever they're going to be? I'm hearing there's no telemetry or anything involved with any of this. But also, what if the property owner wants, or the well owner wants to install his own meter? Because meters come certified, there's no need to have them checked, so to speak. And well owner could reduce his cost if he installed his own meter and it was an approved meter.
Dan, do you have an answer to that?
Agree with that.
I think there's certain value, and I need to read back and hear what was for a certification calibration process. One of the things, and I'm not a meter guy, so but one of the things that I do know, and I think we heard in the presentation, earlier this year, is that you can have the world's best meter, but if it's not installed right, it's not gonna be accurate. So there are certain requirements of pipe diameter, multiple pipe diameters that you have to be away from a bend or another appurtenance or other things. And so I think that a homeowner could install their own meter as long as they follow those requirements and guidance, but there might be a benefit to having there be some sort of calibration check just to make sure that it was installed correctly.
They can install it, but still has to be a certified calibration test done on it. Make sure it's operating properly. That's what I heard.
You're the board, so you decide, but that was
There are.
I disagree with that. From the standpoint, when you buy a meter, it's guaranteed to be a certain accuracy. And I agree that there are instructions upstream and downstream obstruction requirements to install them. But to have a independent certified person come out like a double check valve or something along those lines, certify those is gonna really raise the cost on the well owners' costs. And it just, that's why you narrow down and you get approved meters that are been bench tested and they can't go wrong if they're installed.
If they're installed correctly. So, yeah, that's the link here we need, correct? Yes, ma'am.
I just want to point out that the ordinance of Britain does not have installation requirements. It just says that you have to do it for the manufacturer specification.
Yeah, and it does list the property owner or operator. Yeah, so, and, you know, I think with providing proper guidance, you know, and if that guidance is followed, I think you could have others install, have others install it and have it work properly.
That'd be interesting to get that straightened out. Okay, so any other questions? Nothing? Oh,
I
Jenny.
guess I would move we continue this item until August and have the CAG look at it.
I'll second it. And we have a motion and a second to move this item to August.
Director Hartman, do we need a roll call?
I don't think so.
Now, all approved?
Aye.
Those opposed? 5. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Item E, review and consider approval of professional service agreement amendment with GSI for monitoring network expansion and refinement analysis. Dan, take it away.
Yeah, so it's a long meeting. I kind of talked about this already. We have a proposal from GSI to evaluate the existing monitoring network and available data on wells within the EMA and make recommendations for how we can improve that network in cost-effective ways. And so this is an item that we have grant funding for. It's listed in the grant, and we've got the proposal and the contract amendments, which is signed for the board's consideration.
Any input on this? Not hearing public, any input? Seeing none, okay, do I have a motion for 4E?
Approval. What's that thing?
From Joan, second from Elizabeth. And we're gonna do
Do you want a roll call or?
We don't show.
no roll call. Okay, all approved?
Okay.
Aye. Those opposed?
Nothing.
Okay. Let's move on to 4F. Review and consider approval of professional service agreements with Geosystems Analysis or EMA GSA GDE Survey. Hey, man.
So this is another grant project that is funded under the Prop 68 grant. Similarly, we have a proposal that's within the grant budget for that task. Just to be specific, I would recommend that the not to exceed for this project and for incorporation into the contract would be the $42,570, not including the optional task. And, you know, we're anxious to get this work underway so that we can meet the deadlines for the grant.
Board, any comments? Public, any comment? None? And just one thing, that $8,340, that would come back for approval if if it was so needed, correct?
Yeah, we wouldn't include that in the authorization.
Okay. I have a motion. Elizabeth makes a motion to approve 4F. Do I have a second? Joan seconds it.
Oh, I'm just an alternate.
I got that. Okay, all those in favor? Those opposed? None. Thank you. 4G. Review and consider approval of professional service agreement amendment with Confluence Engineering Solutions for Executive Director Services. I believe Steve's gonna handle this one. That's correct.
This is the amendment on, the conflict, I'm sorry. Yeah, you have this original agreement with, Dan's firm had a kind of a limited scope of work and, moving forward, Dan's identified in the proposal, more work that Confluence needs to do and, actually, it's kind of an expansion of the scope. So what you have before you is an amendment to the original Confluence agreement, reflect the, increased scope of the contract. To the details of the scope, you know, Dan can speak to that, but, it looks like the total amount of the amendment would total, $201,611. $201,611.
What's the major driver here of the delta increase? Is it just kind of meetings or additional services that you have to contract for that weren't anticipated?
It's really, I mean, the primary driver is an extension. So the original contract that was approved for the executive director services was only for 9 months. It was intended to get from October 2024 through the end of this fiscal year, so June of 2025. So the primary component of this is for the board's consideration of authorizing us to continue providing executive director services for the next fiscal year. The one addition that is included in there that wasn't as part of the original scope service for executive director services is the groundwater extraction fee administration. We didn't have a groundwater extraction fee, when we originally came on board with the EMA GSA, and so that's an additional task that's included for this fiscal year as we just adopted the groundwater extraction fee. And but I think as we talked about, there's quite a bit of administration that needs to go on to get it on the county tax roll. Well, calculate it, get it on the tax roll, and then deal with any appeals or others in the process.
Board, any questions? Dan, I just want to confirm on this. Like the, okay, any of this work grant reimbursement?
Largely not. I mean, this work is really work focused on the administration and facilitation of the EMA GSA, which is really not part of the component of the grant. I think one could argue that the fee administration program could fall under component 3, the rate study, but the reality is the budget for the rate study wasn't even sufficient to support the rate studies consultants component of it. So even though I think it's arguable that the work is eligible, there's not likely budget there to support it. So unfortunately not, this work is likely not grant reimbursable, but this is work and the dollar amount for it matches what was included in the approved fiscal year 25-26 budget. And it matches what was included in the financial modeling or forecasting that was part of the rate study and the development of groundwater extraction fee.
So no change, no delta impact to the budget.
It's phase 2, basically.
Yeah. That was my second question. You guys answered it. Okay. Any other questions?
So is the fiscal year, July 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2026?
Correct.
That's what that is.
Public comment. Ray.
Working with Dan and Charlotte, they do a great job. They're very responsive. They're keeping the EMA on task. As somebody who was doing some of the work before, I appreciate they're engaged. So I give them a thumbs up.
And there's a few people in the audience that are appreciative.
Thank you, Randy. Appreciate those comments.
I'll take that $20 later, Dan.
There we go. You sit over there.
Hey, do I hear a motion for 4G?
I'll make a motion that we 4G.
Okay, Brett makes the motion. Do I hear a second? Elizabeth seconds. All those in favor? Those opposed? None. Okay. Moving on here. Go to the consent agenda. Hey. Dan, there you are.
Yeah, so we reordered the agenda a bit here today to prioritize the public hearing. Normally consent agenda comes early in the meeting, but we have your standard consent agenda for the meeting minutes and the financial statements associated with the EMA GSA. I would flag one thing there, on the warrant list, there's a invoice for GSI Water Solutions that is part of, if you'll recall, when we approved their original contract, we included $15,000 in as-needed technical support, but with the condition that we spent $5,000, we would come back to the board for authorization to spend an additional $5,000. And so this invoice pushes us over that next threshold, and so we are flagging it and bringing it for board's approval. I would say that the work that GSI provided as part of those as-needed technical services was essential for supporting the groundwater extraction fee initiative that we've all been working towards to get to where we are today.
The comments, like I made. Dan, we've spoken on the comment I have. I'll just let them hear it. On the general ledger, I'd like to see dates so we can track those.
Yep.
That would be helpful for me. Okay, so for 5A, and this is me being anal board, I'd like to have separate votes. So we'll have a vote 5A on meeting minutes, then we'll have a 5B on the financial statement warrant list. So, and that's all my problem. Anyway, yeah. On 5A, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, thank you, Brett. Second,
I'll second.
Elizabeth seconds. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, moving on to 5B for the approval of the financial statement and warrant list. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Elizabeth makes the motion. Second,
Second.
Joan seconds. All in favor? Opposed? None. Okay. Information item 6. New EMA GSA well permits approved by the county. Dan?
We don't have any new well permits approved by the county. But we leave it on here just to remind us that we may have some input.
I'm crazy looking for that.
Yeah, maybe next time we can put a sub-bullet that says done, that would help alleviate that.
Okay, consider date and time next regular and special meetings. Showing here for next EMA GSA regular board meeting is Thursday, July 24th, 4 p.m. at this location. Any issues with that, folks?
My alternate will be here.
Okay.
We had a large turnout today. Are we gonna address that? Do we expect to see a similar turnout next month? Or we might want to consider a different venue. It was suggested the Veterans Hall, but I think most of the people here protest.
Yeah, I think it was the fee that brought everyone out. I personally, I don't think so, because I'm looking at who remains here. We have 1, 2, 3 new faces. I expect to see you guys every meeting we have. We appreciate, we really do. You're our feedback. You're the pulse out there. I wish we had more.
Okay, and then the date of the special meeting, will you determine that for August?
It would be, yeah, we don't have it listed here, but it would be the standard, 4th Thursday at 4 p.m. So.
28th.
28th.
The August 28th. Okay. The August meeting would be the 28th. Okay. Sounds good. And next, Basin Wide Joint Special Meeting is scheduled for Friday, September 5th in Geosystems.
Well, that one's been canceled a couple times, so what's the forecast for September? That'll have to happen.
I mean, we kind of talked about it with the other management reps. I guess. I think the reason we canceled this last one was predominantly because of all the effort going into the groundwater extraction fees, and so, that, we've got under our belt, all three management areas, so, obviously, there's still a lot ongoing in the Prop 68 grant and other initiatives, so I think maybe we'll report back.
Good.
And then, CAD meetings, how is that going to be important?
So much.
The CAD, if we need a CAD meeting prior to August.
Yeah, so we can reach out to the CAG members and schedule it, yeah.
Okay. Hey, for Board of Directors, any reports or requests for future agenda items?
I just want to thank the staff. It's did a lot of work. The agenda shows that outcome right now, but so thank you for the effort.
Appreciate that. Well said, Elizabeth. Everybody concur. Yeah.
Is everything good with the times too?
It was ambitious and I thought it was really fine in the sky. I didn't know how we were gonna get through it.
Well, I appreciate the board's support and staff support as, instrumental in something that's to this critical milestone for the EMA GSA, and I think the study of the River Valley Basin as a whole.
Okay, we don't let up, we got more.
So is everybody gonna have more plot, I know that we were a little bit like, we got here, right, it's the, yes, looking on. Is it pushing for 4 good, so you need to try 4:30?
I think four is good.
Okay, hard to good.
Okay.
It's slightly important.
Adjourn the meeting. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. Good job. Good job.